Chapter 541. The Seven Treasures Thunder Gourd, which had been causing a ruckus in Lu Ping's heart space for several days, finally stopped. Lu Ping heaved a long sigh of relief. After all, it was extremely dangerous for an unstable mystic treasure to be stored in his heart space. Lu Ping carefully used his spiritual sense to observe the talisman formation inside the Seven Treasure Thunder Calabash. Originally, there were only 3 talisman formations inside the Seven Treasure Thunder Calabash, but now, on top of these 3 talisman formations, a shallow and incomplete talisman pattern was gradually being outlined. This incomplete talisman pattern was the main reason why the Seven Treasure Thunder Calabash almost went out of control. When this talisman pattern was formed, it was when the Seven Treasure Thunder Calabash suddenly absorbed Yuan's lightning ability. Although this talisman pattern was extremely shallow and the entire talisman pattern looked incomplete, just this incomplete talisman pattern alone was extremely complex. Even with Lu Ping's meticulous study of the mysterious jade slip he obtained from Fei Ling Island, it was difficult to see the complete picture of the Fei Ling sect's restriction techniques. It seemed to be only a small part of an extremely profound restriction. However, it was this incomplete talisman pattern that gave the Seven Treasure Thunder Calabash a different feeling. It seemed to have a trace of a spiritual magic treasure, but it was still too far away. Lu Ping had long suspected that this incomplete talisman pattern was a part of the Seven Treasure Thunder Calabash spiritual treasure restriction. However, what surprised Lu Ping was that in the cultivation world, there was no legend that the Seven Treasure Thunder Calabash could form a talisman formation without being refined by a cultivator. Could it be because of Yuan Feixiang's lightning god art? Or could it be that the Seven Treasure Thunder Calabash itself could absorb lightning abilities to advance? Lu Ping didn't know the reason behind this, but he guessed that the Yuan clan also had the inheritance of refining the Seven Treasures Thunder Calabash. At the very least, the Yuan clan's famous thunder and lightning magical ability in the cultivation world was related to the Seven Treasures Thunder Calabash spiritual barrier. In the world of cultivation, the Kuan Fish clan was known as the direct descendant of Peng Laozu, and the Yuan clan was the only inheritor of Peng Laozu's thunder bloodline in the world of cultivation. Although these 2 clans were both descendants of Peng Laozu's bloodline, one was a demon clan, the other a human clan. Moreover, one was a hegemon in the Eastern Sea, the other was the #1 clan in the Central Earth, so the 2 clans did not have much interaction in the world of cultivation. However, since they were both descendants of Peng Laozu, and the Seven Treasures Thunder Calabash was the #1 magic treasure in the world of cultivation, then it was reasonable for the Yuan clan to have the Seven Treasures Thunder Calabash's inheritance. Not to mention that the Seven Treasures Thunder Calabash was of the thunder attribute. The Yuan clan was the only inheritor of Peng Laozu's thunder bloodline, so it was more reasonable for them to have the Seven Treasures Thunder Calabash's inheritance. After Lu Linger's cultivation broke through to the 2nd level of core forging, Lu Ping didn't immediately let Lu Linger go into seclusion to consolidate her cultivation. Instead, he continued to roam the sea with Samling, searching for some relatively small groups of poisonous beasts. After using the Seven Treasures Thunder Calabash to stun most of the poisonous beasts, he began to absorb their bloodline essence and smelt it into his own bloodline. On this day, Lu Ping had just smelted the bloodline essence of a poisonous beast, causing Lu Ping to smelt a total of 12 types of bloodline essences. The total amount of bloodline essence he had smelted was 1,296 drops. The feeling of hunger in his bloodline suddenly disappeared without a trace. Samling's bloodline had actually reached saturation when Lu Ping smelted the 9th type of poisonous beast's bloodline. During this period, Lu Bai had also used a few days to break through to the 2nd level of core forging. After that, she was thrown into the Golden House by Lu Ping for seclusion. After that, Lu Ping was the only one who refined the 3 types of bloodlines. After the feeling of hunger in his bloodline disappeared, Lu Ping had a premonition that his bloodline had also reached saturation. Just in case, Lu Ping once again tracked down a group of poisonous beasts in the sea. After knocking all of these poisonous beasts out, he discovered that his bloodline had indeed stopped fusing with the bloodline of these poisonous beasts. Lu Ping shook his head with some regret. Now, he believed that the fallen archipelago was formed after the injured Jiao Daoren spat out a mouthful of poisonous blood. It wasn't only because of the magical myriad heavenly poison wall, but also because of the poisonous beast's bloodline. The grade of these poisonous beasts' bloodlines might not be comparable to the top-grade monsters that possessed inherited memories in the cultivation world. However, the bloodline essence contained in these poisonous beasts was extremely pure. Lu Ping had smelted the bloodline essence of 12 types of poisonous beasts, a total of 1,296 drops of bloodline essence. In addition to forging a rare foundation for Lu Ping in the cultivation world, these bloodline essences also gave him a noble coercion that came from his bloodline. When Lu Ping deliberately released this coercion, even Luan Yu felt extremely uncomfortable. When Lu Dagui saw Lu Ping, he immediately transformed into his original form and assumed a posture of worship and submission. When Lu Ping deliberately released the coercion of his bloodline, Dabao turned around and ran away. Only Samling had not only fused with the bloodline essence, but every drop of the bloodline essence was first refined in Lu Ping's own bloodline before being given to them to fuse with. In this way, not only was Samling not afraid of Lu Ping's bloodline coercion, but his relationship with Lu Ping was even closer. Luan Yu gradually sensed a faint aura of suppression from the three spirits, which greatly displeased him. Lu Ping wasn't a big deal as he was already used to Luan Yu's ability to surprise others. But the three spirits were just top-grade monster cultivators like him, and Luan Yu's cultivation base was higher than the three spirits. So why was the three spirits' bloodline suppression able to affect him as well? Lu Ping naturally did not care about Luan Yu's thoughts. However, he was somewhat happy about his progress in cultivation. After refining the 12 bloodlines, Lu Ping's cultivation had also improved greatly. He was only one step away from the peak of the 5th stage of core forging realm and breaking through to the 6th stage. These 12 bloodlines had saved Lu Ping at least 10 years of hard work in his cultivation. After completing the bloodline smelting, Lu Ping once again began to search for rare treasures on various islands. At this time, it had been nearly 2 months since the opening of the Fallen Archipelago. Every time the Fallen Archipelago opened for 2 months, the concentration of poisonous fog above the Fallen Archipelago could rise at any time. When that time came, the Fallen Archipelago would close. In history, the Fallen Archipelago had never been open for more than 3 months. Although the area of the Fallen Archipelago was large, such a long time was enough for cultivators to collect most of the spiritual herbs, spiritual materials, and other cultivation resources on the islands. However, the seabed was different. It was almost a forbidden area for core forging realm cultivators. Only Fa Xiong, Laozu, could enter and exit freely. Therefore, Lu Ping set his goal to search for treasures on the seabed. Unfortunately, although there were many good things on the seabed was wider. Even if the cultivation resources were more abundant than on the islands, it could not be as concentrated as on the islands. Moreover, although Lu Ping's myriad poison meteorite gang's ability to resist the erosion of the poison in the seawater had greatly increased, it was still a big burden on Lu Ping's Zhenqi consumption. It was impossible for Lu Ping to stay in the seawater for a long time. On this day, Lu Ping's luck came again. He had just found a head-sized, second-class metal attribute spiritual material, 1000 sand copper, on the seabed. Although this spiritual material was not high-grade, it was extremely rare. This spiritual material was indispensable for refining high-grade pill furnaces, top-grade pill furnaces, and even magic pill furnaces. This made the 1000 sand copper's value in the cultivation world comparable to that of an earth-grade spiritual object. Lu Ping carefully examined the 1000 sand copper's surroundings. After discovering that there were no hidden dangers, he stored the head-sized spiritual material, which actually weighed several thousand kilograms, into his storage artifact. Just as Lu Ping stored the 1000 sand copper into his interspatial mystic artifact, a loud bang suddenly came from the bottom of the sea in the distance. The seabed beneath his feet shook violently and countless specks of dust rose into the air, turning the seawater murky. Lu Ping was shocked. When he turned to look, he saw the seawater in the distance rapidly turbulent. A huge shockwave brought along a powerful undercurrent that was rushing towards Lu Ping. It was already too late for Lu Ping to hide. He held the water control flag in his hand and immediately executed the water control art. The seawater around Lu Ping was also turbulent, and it rushed towards the rushing undercurrent. At the same time, it constantly disintegrated the undercurrent's power, obstructed its speed, and changed its direction. However, the power of the undercurrent was too tyrannical. Even though Lu Ping did his best to execute the water control art, he could only affect a portion of the undercurrent. The rest was still rushing towards Lu Ping. Lu Ping's expression was solemn. 5 layers of stellar energy bloomed around him like a lotus. Together with the outermost layer of the myriad poison meteorite gang, they formed the white jade lotus gang that was unique to Lu Ping. At the same time, Lu Ping patted his chest. A bowl-sized 9th grade white jade lotus suddenly floated out from Lu Ping's chest. Lu Ping slowly rose from the seabed. The lotus floated under Lu Ping's feet and suddenly expanded, immediately merging with the white jade lotus gang around his body. The undercurrent whistled, and the 9th grade white jade lotus shone brightly. However, Lu Ping was still unable to control his body. He was directly swept away by the undercurrent. Fortunately, although the 9th grade white jade lotus had just advanced to become a psychic artifact, its defense was really strong. The white light lingered around Lu Ping's body, protecting Lu Ping from being affected by the undercurrent. Lu Ping was carried a few miles away by the undercurrent. Only then did he manage to use the water control art to control the surrounding water flow and stop himself. Lu Ping looked in the direction of the loud noise with lingering fear. This was definitely a fight between Dharma adepts at the bottom of the sea, and he had become a fish in the moat. However, he did not know what kind of treasure the Dharma adepts were fighting over. It had to be at least a high-grade Earth-level spirit item. Or it could be something like the growing soil, which was as valuable as a heaven-level spirit item. Lu Ping thought to himself. Just as Lu Ping extinguished his curiosity to find out what was going on and prepared to go far away, a continuous roar came from the bottom of the sea again. Although the noise this time was not as loud as the first time, it was much more frequent and concentrated. However, what made Lu Ping's heart jump was that the roar was coming towards Lu Ping and was getting closer and closer. Chapter 542. Lu Ping turned around to escape, but how could his speed compare to that of a Dharma adept? With no other choice, Lu Ping could only turn around and hide in a valley at the bottom of the sea, hoping to avoid the aftershocks of the battle between Dharma adepts. Fortunately, Lu Ping had been wearing the stone armor. Although this set of armor could not be detected by late core forging adepts, he did not know if this set of armor could hide from Dharma adepts. The tremors in the sea became more and more intense, and countless amounts of soil rose from the bottom of the sea, stirring up the sea until it was impossible to see clearly, but it also made it easier for Lu Ping to hide. The rumbling sounds were getting closer, and Lu Ping could vaguely hear the angry roars of the adepts. However, the expression on Lu Ping's face became more and more strange. "My Tianqin, I think you'd better leave that piece of Shentian evil wood behind. Haha, Master Dongji, aren't you afraid that I, Zhenling, will take revenge on both the vast sea sect and the Kanglang sect in the future in the North Sea?" My Tianqin's words had obviously hit the nail on the head. Not far away, a cold grunt could be heard, and the battle between the two sides became more and more intense. After a while, Dongji Laozu's voice could be heard. The North Sea no longer has the vast sea sect and the Kanglang sect. There is only one sect, the Kanglang sect. Once our two sects merge, there will be 7 Dharma adepts, and 3 of them will be at the mid-Dharma stage. How can you, Zhenling, deal with them as you wish? 3 mid-Dharma adepts. Tianqin Laozu's solemn and surprised voice rang out. Could it be that Master Dong Kuan has successfully passed the tribulation of the early Dharma stage and advanced to the mid-Dharma stage? Laozu of the East Pole seemed to have let the cat out of the bag. After a moment of silence, he knew that there was no need to keep it a secret anymore, so he said, "That's right, junior sister Dongkuan has already advanced to the mid-Dharma stage. Zhenling's schemes in the North Sea have forced even the Xianling sect to admit defeat. Now that you, my Tianqin, have returned to the North Sea, I'm afraid that it will have a huge impact on the North Sea training world again. Of the 9 Dharma adepts, Laozu is the undisputed number 1 among all the sects in the North Sea. However, Junling is not the only one who knows how to scheme in the North Sea. The Vast Waves sect and the Vast Seas sect have been divided for a long time. Now that the training world is about to change, it's time for the two sects to merge. What Laozu of the East Pole had said seemed to be accurate about Junling's current situation. Tianqin Laozu did not respond for a moment. The two of them engaged in another round of battle, causing the entire seabed to shake violently. Lu Ping stayed in the valley and did not know if his movements had been discovered by the two. He could only try his best to keep the aura around his body from leaking out, and he did not dare to use his divine will to observe the battle between the two. Lu Ping naturally knew that the Shentian tree was a low-grade heaven-level wood attribute spirit object. It was probably only in an environment like the Fallen Archipelago, where poisonous creatures were everywhere, that such a strange heaven-level spirit object like the Shentian tree could be nurtured. Once the Vast Sea sect and Kang Lang sect merged, the entire sect would have 3 mid-Dharma adepts and 4 early Dharma adepts. This level of strength was already close to that of the Xianling sect and ranked third among all the sects in the North Sea. The 10 great sects would become 9 great sects, and they would clearly be divided into 3 groups. Zhanling, Xianling, and the merged Kang Lang sect would be in the first group, Shui Yang Pavilion and Hai Yang sect would be in the second group, but the two sects had always been on good terms, and once they joined forces, their strength would be stronger than any of the sects in the first group. The remaining 4 sects, Yuzhen sect, Chongming sect, Lingjiu sect, and Feiyu sect, which were already at the bottom of the 10 great sects, would be in the third group, and they would have to see the situation clearly and attach themselves to a few larger sects. My Tianqin, your level of practice and strength is far inferior to mine. If we were on the surface of the sea, perhaps you could use your alchemy grandmaster attainments to make up for the difference in our level of practice. But if we were at the bottom of the sea, even your alchemy grandmaster level would be greatly reduced, so how would you be a match for me? That Shentian tree will fall into my hands sooner or later, and I don't want to offend you, Zhenling. As long as you give the Shentian tree to the old man will give you a high-grade earth-level spirit fire of heaven and earth. What do you think? East Pole Laozu seemed to feel that he had not said enough, so he continued, I know you have a disciple called Shen Hui, who is the wife of Jiang Qianlin's disciple. She has been stuck at the 6th layer of the core forging realm for many years. Jiang Qianlin and his wife are mean and ungrateful, so how would they search for spirit items for your disciple? If you have this spirit fire of heaven and earth, you can give it to your disciple. What do you think? This was sowing discord. Although Lu Ping could not see the expression on Tianqin Laozu's face, he heard Tianqin Laozu chuckle and say, Martial Uncle East Pole has a good plan. I wonder if Martial Uncle East Pole knows how many high-grade earth-level spirit fires I can exchange for this piece of Shentian tree in my hand if I bring it out of the fallen Great Archipelago. Then you have to have the ability to bring it out. East Pole Laozu did not speak anymore, but Lu Ping could guess that at this time, East Pole Laozu's face must be gloomy and scary, because a fierce roar came from the sea again. Obviously, East Pole Laozu was also very angry, so the power of his attack was greatly increased. The battle between the two Dharma phase Laozu stirred up the whole seabed, and the aftermath of the battle reached the seabed, causing the whole ground to shake as if there was an earthquake. The valley where Lu Ping was hiding was also shaking, and countless bubbles appeared on the ground. Lu Ping's expression changed, he felt the ground shaking more and more violently, but the momentum of the battle between the two Dharma phase Laozu did not change. This was a real earthquake. It was most likely caused by the battle between the two of them. Rumble. The roar from the underground was getting closer and louder. Finally, even the two Laozu who were fighting in the sea had noticed the abnormality at the bottom of the sea, and they stopped and retreated at the same time. Lu Ping's expression was solemn. At this time, he could already judge that the center of the earthquake was at the foot of an underwater mountain in front of him, not too far away from Lu Ping. This was not an earthquake, but an underground volcano eruption. Lu Ping's expression also changed dramatically, and he no longer cared about hiding his body. He rushed out of the valley at the bottom of the sea and fled all the way to the distance. Neither Dongji Laozu nor Tianqin Laozu expected that there would be someone hiding under the ground. Both of them were shocked and had a lingering fear. This person obviously wanted to be a fisherman, but unfortunately, this person seemed to have some treasure on him that blocked the detection of divine sense. The sea at the bottom of the sea was extremely muddy because of the battle between the two sides, so the two could not see the appearance of the person who escaped. Immediately, the two also discovered that what was happening under the ground was not an earthquake, but a volcanic eruption at the bottom of the sea. No wonder the person just fled. The two could not help but retreat without saying anything. The bottom of the sea shook more and more violently, and a mass of scarlet magma suddenly spewed out from an underwater mountain. Countless mud and a large number of bubbles rushed straight to the surface of the sea. After the initial eruption of the magma, the bright red magma began to slowly pour down from the top of the mountain, and the seawater along the way seemed to be boiling. Suddenly, there was another violent shaking under the ground, and another wave of magma rushed out from the top of the mountain, accompanied by a large amount of mud and boiling seawater, spreading in all directions. At this moment, two scarlet flames like blood suddenly rushed out from the muddy seawater. One of the two flames was very agile. After flying out of the volcano, it seemed to immediately realize that the environment here was not suitable for its existence, so it immediately changed direction and rushed above the seawater. As long as it was out of the sea, it could continue to exist. The other flame seemed to be directly spat out from the magma by the huge force of the volcano eruption, and it went straight in a direction in the seawater without a trace of change. Obviously, this flame was not a heaven and earth spirit fire. It did not realize that if it did not leave the bottom of the sea, it would be annihilated in the seawater sooner or later. After all, how could water and fire be compatible? No matter how high the quality of this flame was, it could not compare to the quantity of seawater. Earth high-grade Fey, Earth blood flame, East Pole Laozu exclaimed, and his figure rushed toward the Earth blood flame. It was a pity that the location of the Earth blood flame was too far from him, and Lyra Laozu was one step ahead of him. East Pole Laozu put his hands together in the middle, and a large amount of seawater suddenly collapsed. With East Pole Laozu as the center, a vacuum without seawater was formed, and then the surrounding seawater rushed over and filled up. A dark green water ball appeared in East Pole Laozu's hand. As East Pole Laozu pushed the water ball in his hand, it suddenly disappeared in front of East Pole Laozu, and when it appeared again, it was not far from Lyra Laozu. At this moment, Lyra Laozu was about to suppress the earth blood flame, but he did not expect the dark green water ball to rush over. This was a great divine art that East Pole Laozu had practiced, and it had twice the effect with half the effort in the seawater. Helplessly, Lyra Laozu could only temporarily give up on suppressing the earth blood flame, and suddenly, a golden flame appeared in his hand. This golden flame was not weakened by the surrounding seawater. As Lyra Laozu waved his hand, the dark green water ball collided with the golden flame. A muffled sound that was exactly the same as the one that Lu Ping had heard the first time, but this time, it was far more powerful than the first time. Suddenly, the center of the collision between the water ball and the flame erupted in all directions. From the beginning to the end, the two Dharma powers Laozu did not pay attention to the red flame that flew straight into the depths of the sea. Earth Blood False Flame. A third-grade spiritual material formed from a high-grade earth-level spirit, the Earth Blood Flame, after losing its spirituality. That was why it was called the Earth Blood False Flame. This Earth Blood False Flame was flying in the direction that Lu Ping had escaped from. From the two Dharma powers Laozu's point of view, although the flame was considered valuable, it was flying in the direction of the cultivator who had been hiding in the underwater valley. It was likely that the cultivator had already kept it, and there was no need for the two of them to offend a Dharma adept for a flame that had lost its spirituality. Lu Ping did not go far. Although there were two Dharma powers Laozu fighting here, one of them was Laozu from his own sect, so there was no need for Lu Ping to escape. Chapter 543. Lu Ping naturally knew about the Earth Blood False Flame. Seeing Lyra Laozu and East Pole Laozu fighting again in the distance, he thought for a while and naturally understood what they were thinking. Lu Ping waved his hand to suppress the Earth Blood False Flame and put it away. Although this treasure was not comparable to a spiritual object of heaven and earth, it was still a rare third-class spiritual material. Generally speaking, A magic weapon made of this spiritual material had the potential to become a magic weapon at the level of spirit-nurturing magic weapon. Lu Ping watched the battle between Lyra Laozu and East Pole Laozu from afar. Obviously, these two people could not detect Lu Ping's strength through their divine thoughts. Lu Ping suddenly had a bold idea. He simply stopped hiding and walked straight towards the direction of the battle from the distant seabed. Noticing that Lu Ping was walking towards them, Lyra Laozu and East Pole Laozu did not know whether he was an enemy or a friend, so they stopped fighting and retreated at the same time, looking in the direction of Lu Ping. Seeing that the two people really stopped fighting, Lu Ping became more confident. A smile appeared at the corner of his mouth, and he flew straight to the two people. As the distance between Lu Ping and the two people narrowed, the muddy seawater could no longer hide Lu Ping's figure and appearance. Seeing that the person in the sea was actually Lu Ping, Lyra Laozu could not help but show a trace of surprise and doubt on his face. However, Lyra Laozu immediately thought of something. He did not speak, but his face was relaxed, and he even smiled at Lu Ping. Naturally, the expression on Patriarch Celestial Harp's face did not escape Patriarch Eastpole's notice. Patriarch Eastpole's face immediately darkened. Clearly, the two of them knew each other. Additionally, he was actually incapable of seeing through this seemingly young cultivator. Although there were quite a number of magic treasures capable of concealing one's cultivation base in the world of cultivation, could someone who could appear in the waters of the Fallen Archipelago be an ordinary cultivator? Mai Tianqin had been drifting in the East Sea for decades. As an alchemy grandmaster, it seemed that she had gotten to know many high-grade cultivators in the East Sea. Unexpectedly, she was able to meet people she was familiar with in the Fallen Islands. This person could have stayed away from the battle between the two sides and even hid on the sidelines to reap the benefits. But now, she came straight to the East Sea. Obviously, it was because of Mai Tianqin. Zhenling's sect was really scheming. Although East Pole Laozu was upset, he still looked calm on the surface and bowed. He said, "How should I address you, sir? Do you have any instructions for me?" Lu Ping looked at the mid-Dharma Laozu in front of him, who could kill him with a wave of his hand. He forcibly suppressed the panic in his heart and looked in the direction of Lyra Laozu. He also bowed slightly and said with a smile, "Greetings, sir. I was looking for some spiritual materials for alchemy here, but I happened to see you two fighting. Sorry to disturb you." Lu Ping also bowed slightly to East Pole Laozu. East Pole Laozu smiled dryly. "You don't have to be so polite, sir. You were originally gathering spiritual materials here, and it was us who disturbed you." Unexpectedly, Lu Ping's tone changed and he said, "But fellow Daoist Mai Tianqin is a good friend of mine. I wonder if fellow Daoist Mai can give me face and not make things difficult for her." Although East Pole Laozu had already expected this result, East Pole Laozu's face still darkened after hearing Lu Ping's words. Lu Ping saw this and smiled faintly. "What's wrong? Fellow Daoist, are you unwilling to give me face?" East Pole Laozu suddenly snorted coldly. Lyra Laozu's eyes immediately flashed with a trace of worry, but this worry only flashed for a moment. His hands hidden in his sleeves were already covered by a golden light. When Lu Ping heard East Pole Laozu's cold snort, he knew that something was wrong. But at this time, he was like an arrow on the bow. If anything went wrong, he would immediately be killed by East Pole Laozu. At this time, in order to not be suspected by East Pole Laozu, Lu Ping had already walked not far from the two. If East Pole Laozu really attacked, he was afraid that Lyra Laozu would not be able to save him in time. East Pole Laozu's cold snort was like a heavy hammer, smashing towards the divine sense in Lu Ping's mind. Lu Ping's face suddenly turned pale, but he immediately recovered. He looked at East Pole Laozu and sneered. "I will remember your generous gift." East Pole Laozu looked at Lu Ping with some doubt. At this time, Lyra Laozu had already come to Lu Ping's side. It was obvious that he was going to join forces with Lu Ping to fight with East Pole Laozu. East Pole Laozu glanced at the two with a gloomy face, then turned to the other direction of the seabed without saying a word. After East Pole Laozu left, Lu Ping and Lyra Laozu did not speak. The two were silent for a long time. Then Lyra Laozu said, "He has left." Lu Ping's indifferent expression suddenly disappeared. His face suddenly became paler than before. Blood oozed out of his mouth, nose, and ears. The golden shield around him also became flickering and was on the verge of collapse. Lyra Laozu saw that Lu Ping was almost unable to support the shield. She frowned and stretched out her slender hand. A fiery red qi overflowed from her fingertips and poured into Lu Ping's qi shield. Although Lu Ping's mouth and nose were bleeding because of East Pole Laozu's previous cold snort, his mind was extremely clear. Seeing that Lyra Laozu wanted to help him, he quickly said, "Martial uncle, wait." Although Lyra Laozu was puzzled, she still took back the overflowing qi in an instant. Her control of qi had really reached the point of perfection. When Lu Ping saw Lyra Laozu take back the qi, he finally breathed a sigh of relief. But at this time, there seemed to be 12 copper bells ringing in his mind. His whole body was incomparably sore and weak. He really did not have the strength to explain anything. On the contrary, Lyra Laozu carefully looked at the golden shield around Lu Ping's body. She said with some surprise, "Myriad poison meteorite energy shield, I should have thought of it. Without the protection of this shield, with your cultivation, it is impossible for you to go to the bottom of the sea." Lu Ping reached out and took out a jade bottle. He poured out an orange pill and swallowed it. After a moment, the paleness on his face receded a little. He reluctantly smiled at Lyra Laozu and said, "Martial uncle has good eyesight. It is indeed the myriad poison meteorite energy shield." Lyra Laozu curled her lips and said, "That is the profound spirit pill. It is said that this is a kind of strange pill of the Central Plains Lu family to restore and nourish the mind. It is rarely circulated in the cultivation world. I did not expect you to be able to get your hands on the pill recipe." Lu Ping wanted to point out the relationship between the North Sea's Liao clan and the Central Plains Lu clan. "Hence," he said, "this is a pellet recipe I exchanged from Liao clan's clan head, Liao Ruanjia, when I accompanied Martial Uncle Fornax to the North Seas Alchemist Conference." Lyra Laozu chuckled and said, "The Liao family is also related to the Central Plains?" "But that's right. The Liao family originally came from the Central Plains. It is normal that they have some inheritance from the Central Plains." Lu Ping watched as old ancestor Tian Qin took out a jade essence bottle and poured out a medicinal pellet that looked like a crystal bead. He handed it to Lu Ping and said, "This is a nascent soul pellet, much better than the soul accumulation pellet. Take it first and your divine sense will recover by half. As for the rest, with your extraordinary divine sense, you'll be able to recover in half a month." Lu Ping reached out and took the nascent soul pellet. He saw that the medicinal pellet was stored in a jade essence bottle and knew it was a half-step core forging medicinal pellet. He hesitated and said, "Martial uncle, this medicinal pellet is very precious and I'm afraid it's very rare. Although my divine sense was severely damaged, it didn't damage my foundation. Even without the nascent soul pellet, I should be able to recover in at least 3 months to half a year." Lyra Laozu looked at Lu Ping with surprise. She didn't expect Lu Ping's mind to be so profound. Lu Ping was afraid that Lu Ping's mind had reached the peak of a core forging cultivator's mind. No wonder Lu Ping could block Laozu's mind attack. Lyra Laozu looked a little unhappy and said, "I told you to take it, so take it. Why do you have so much nonsense? Why did he have to learn all of Liu Qianling's skills, and at the same time, learn Jiang Qianlin's courteous skills as a hypocrite? I didn't give this pill to you for free. After you recover for a while, I need you to go somewhere with me. There's something I need you to do." Lu Ping heard this and didn't stand on ceremony. He swallowed the nascent soul pill and said, "Since Martial Uncle has instructed me, Disciple will do his best. It's just that Disciple's level is too low. I don't want to ruin Martial Uncle's plans." Lyra Laozu chuckled and said, "How is your level weak? Didn't you just scare off a mid-Dharma adept?" Lu Ping's face changed and he asked hesitantly, "Martial Uncle, you don't want Disciple to?" Lyra Laozu glanced at Lu Ping and said, "The stone armor you're wearing is not bad. I think it's because of this armor that Dongji couldn't see through you." Lu Ping laughed, tacitly agreeing with Lyra Laozu's guess. The nascent soul pill was indeed worthy of being a half-step Dharma adept's pill. It melted in his mouth and a cool feeling rose from his stomach to his brain. This made Lu Ping's messed up divine will recover by half. Lu Ping was overjoyed. If this continued, he would be able to recover his divine will in less than 10 days. Lyra Laozu had been wandering the East Sea all these years. Although she had joined the boudoir of the current carefree sect, she must have had some fortuitous encounters and gains. This nascent soul pill was like that. At least, Lu Ping had never seen this kind of pill in the Zhonling Elixir Pavilion. The Liao family's nascent soul pill focused more on the cultivation of divine will than on recovery. On a deserted island in the center of the perished archipelago, 2 groups of practitioners were facing each other. On one side were 2 mid-Dharma adepts and 3 other Dharma adepts. One of them was the middle-aged practitioner who had rushed to save Yuan Feixiang. Behind him were 7 or 8 late core forging adepts, one of whom was Yuan Feixiang. On the other side, under the leadership of 4 Dharma adepts, there were also a few late core forging adepts following behind them. The 2 Dharma adepts in the lead were also mid-Dharma adepts. Why isn't my Shen Qin here yet? Could it be that she didn't receive Marshal Uncle Yuhuan's message? She's no longer a member of our carefree sect. Why should she help us? Maybe she was delayed by something. Chapter 544. The whispers of a few female practitioners behind them made one of the voluptuous mid-Dharma adepts rather unhappy. At this moment, the female practitioner's face lit up and she looked in the direction beside her. The other mid-Dharma adept beside this female adept seemed to have sensed something as well, and she looked in the same direction. The 2 Dharma adepts opposite them had already noticed that someone was rushing over. However, when they saw the expressions on the faces of the practitioners from the Carefree sect and Tianyu sect, the 2 Yuan clan Laozu's faces could not help but turn a little ugly. A beam of light landed not far from the opposing practitioners. Tianqin Laozu and Lu Ping walked together in the direction of the Carefree sect. Tianqin Laozu walked in front of the voluptuous mid-Dharma adept, bowed, and said, "How has senior sister Yuhuan been?" When the voluptuous female cultivator saw ancestor Sky Zither, she smiled, "Thanks to junior sister, things have been going well these days. The establishment of the free and unfettered sect is just around the corner. When the time comes, junior sister must be there." Tianqin Laozu smiled. "All these years, I have been taken care of by many sisters in the sect. Otherwise, I would not have advanced to the Dharma stage so quickly. When the time comes, I will be there personally to congratulate you." As Tianqin Laozu finished speaking, she pointed to Lu Ping beside her and said, "After receiving senior sister Yuhuan's message, I rushed here as fast as I could. Unexpectedly, there were some accidents along the way. Fortunately, I met with my junior brother, Lu Tianping, who helped me out. I hope I am not too late." When Lu Ping heard Tianqin Laozu call her senior sister Yuhuan, he knew that this was the mid-Dharma adept of the Carefree sect, Xiao Yuhuan, whom Yuan Guang Laozu had called out at the Phantom City auction. He hurriedly stepped forward and bowed. "Greetings, senior sister Xiao." Seeing that Lu Ping looked young, Xiao Yuhuan could not help but be surprised. She said to Tianqin Laozu, "Sister Shen Qin, reaching the Dharma stage in 400 years is already amazing. I did not expect you to have such a young Dharma junior brother. Your sect is indeed extraordinary. No wonder you insisted on not joining the boudoir and only became a guest of our sect. I think you have not practiced for 400 years, have you?" Lu Ping smiled slightly and did not reply. His expression seemed to have tacitly agreed with Xiao Yuhuan and Laozu's conjecture. This caused the crowd to be unable to gauge Lu Ping's strength for a while. A mere 400-year Dharma adept is already so highly sought after overseas. The overseas training world is really disappointing. In the Central Plains training world, although no one thinks highly of the adepts who only focus on improving their level of practice, there are still many adepts who manage to advance to the Dharma stage within 200 years. When Lu Ping looked back, he saw that the person who had spoken was the middle-aged adept who had rushed to the Central Plains to rescue Yuan Feixiang. When Lu Ping had just arrived, he had seen Yuan Feixiang standing behind a few Dharma adepts. However, Lu Ping's face did not show the slightest change. When Lu Ping turned to look, Yuan Feixiang was also looking at Lu Ping with a burning gaze. Lu Ping smiled indifferently at Yuan Feixiang and turned back to stand behind Lyra Laozu. However, when Lu Ping turned around, the indifferent smile on his face had already disappeared. In its place was the same expression as Yuan Feixiang's. This was because Lu Ping could see the challenge in Yuan Feixiang's eyes. He could see the unwillingness to admit defeat. In fact, putting aside the fact that Lu Ping was currently acting as the Dharma adept Laozu Lu Tianping, the real person who should have this kind of gaze should be Lu Ping looking at Yuan Feixiang. When the middle-aged adept saw that Lu Ping was ignoring his words, he felt that his dignity had been violated. Hence, he said coldly, "What, are you afraid?" Lu Ping stood behind Lyra Laozu. In the face of the middle-aged adept's provocation, he maintained an indifferent expression. It was as if he did not take the middle-aged adept's provocation to heart at all. Instead, his eyes were fixed on the ground in the middle of the confrontation between the two sides. In fact, when Lu Ping and Lyra Laozu walked towards the crowd just now, Lu Ping had already seen many inexplicable caves on the ground around them. There were also many bloodstains and traces of fighting. Obviously, the place where everyone was standing should have been a dangerous place where poisonous beasts ran rampant. Later, several Dharma adepts from both sides broke in and killed all the hidden poisonous beasts. What made Lu Ping feel a little strange was that the corpses of the poisonous beasts had disappeared. Could it be that the cultivators of both sides had collected them? And in the middle of the confrontation between the two sides, there was a thick layer of poisonous fog. The poisonous fog here was much thicker and denser than that in the other parts of the Fallen Islands. At this time, the poisonous fog from all directions was continuously gathering in the middle of the open space. The momentum was even greater than when Lu Ping had absorbed the myriad poison liquid to nourish the myriad wonder jade nectar. Of course, this was also because Lu Ping had been changing the location of absorbing the myriad poison liquid out of caution. Otherwise, the momentum of the poisonous fog that he had caused might not be much less than now. As for the poisonous fog that Lu Ping and dwarf miner repairs found in the poisoned swamp, the gathering of the Yuanqing liquid and the hidden Qiangang golden liquid caused by the gathering of the poisonous fog could not be compared to this. The gathering of the poisonous fog eventually formed 5 vortexes in the open space, which meant that there might be 5 treasures that were eventually formed and unearthed. Lu Ping's indifferent attitude did not mean that the practitioners on the side of the carefree sect would allow the other side to provoke them so unscrupulously. The middle Dharma stage female practitioner next to Xiao Yuhuan Laozu of the carefree sect frowned and said to a middle Dharma stage elder on the other side, "Friend Yuan Luo, the Yuan family is the #1 family in the Central Plains. I have heard that the disciples of the Yuan family have always been gentle and elegant, kind and polite. How could this friend Yuan Feng be so arrogant and domineering? Could it be that what you hear is false and what you see is true?" The middle Dharma stage elder, Yuan Luo, smiled and said, "This nephew of mine is different from the rest of the family. He has an impatient temper and likes to challenge the strong everywhere he goes. Friend Wang Yu has to laugh at him. It's just that this time, the Heavenly Moon sect and the Carefree sect have come together, which has exceeded my expectations. However, I don't know which sect or sect these two fellows are from." Xiao Yuhuan glanced at Tianqin Laozu, who was next to her, and seemed to understand something. She changed the topic and said with a smile, "Friend Yuan, let's first talk about the distribution of the treasures that have been unearthed." The expression of the other middle Dharma stage adept beside Yuan Luo suddenly changed. He said, "We have already finished our discussion earlier. Out of these 5 treasures, the Yuan clan will have 3. Why, are the Carefree sect and the Tianyu sect going back on their word?" Wang Yu Laozu of the Tianyu sect said calmly, "Previously, your Yuan clan was powerful, and the Carefree sect and the Tianyu sect were not your opponents even if we joined forces. Naturally, your Yuan clan got the biggest share. Now that we have Sister Xianqin and her junior brother joining us, we have 1 more Dharma adept. Naturally, the distribution method has to be changed. Could it be that friend Yuan Ge really wants to fight with the practitioners of our 3 sects for these few spiritual items?" Yuan Ge was furious. He took a step forward and was about to make a move, but he was stopped by Yuan Luo, who was beside him. Yuan Luo looked deeply at Xiao Yuhuan and Wang Yu sect and said, "Okay, we will do as you say." Yuan Ji panicked and said, "Fourth brother, looking at the momentum of this poisonous fog, the treasures underground are at least mid-earth level and above." When the disciples of the Yuan clan heard this, they all showed anger on their faces. The atmosphere between the two sides suddenly became tense. "Okay, don't say any more. This time, when we came to the East Sea, Big Brother said very clearly that I will be in charge of everything. Did you not hear him?" Yuan Ji snorted angrily, but did not say anything else. Yuan Luo turned around and said with a smile, "I have made a fool of myself. Since that is the case, how do the two of you intend to divide the treasures?" Xiao Yuhuan and Wang Yu sect glanced at each other, and then Xiao Yuhuan said, "Thank you, fellow Daoist Yuan Luo. In this way, we only need to reverse the distribution plan. We will choose 3 treasures, and your clan will choose 1. What does fellow Daoist think?" Yuan Ji snorted angrily again, but still did not say anything. Yuan Luo did not care. She thought for a moment and said, "All right." At this time, Lu Ping seemed to be indifferent. He looked around and seemed to be suddenly interested in the surrounding environment of this island. Lu Ping's maverick behavior did not arouse the interest of the surrounding cultivators. Only Yuan Luo had been paying attention to Lu Ping, but after a long time, her eyes also flashed with some doubts. Finally, she put her attention on the 5 treasures that were about to be unearthed in the center of the open space. At this time, the final formation of the treasures seemed to have reached the most critical moment. The momentum of the poisonous fog could almost be described as a storm. Even Lu Ping's attention couldn't help but be drawn back at this time. The 5 thick poisonous fog tornadoes were like 5 giant pillars that reached the sky, as if they were going to pierce through the world shrouded in poisonous fog. Such a vast momentum spread far and wide, and naturally, it was impossible not to attract the attention of other cultivators outside the island. The 4 Dharma laws Laozu frowned from time to time and looked in all directions. Some of the cultivators who came to spy on them were unscrupulous, and even Lu Ping had already discovered where they were hiding. Xiao Yuhuan, Yuan Luo, and the others looked at each other, and almost at the same time, the aura around their bodies exploded. The cultivation of the 4 mid-Dharma laws Laozu immediately scared off many of the surrounding cultivators who were spying on them. Next, the 3 early Dharma laws adepts from the Yuan clan also released their aura. The 2 early Dharma laws adepts from the Xiaoyaro sect and Tianyu sect, as well as Tianqin Laozu, were not to be outdone. After releasing their aura, they shocked the surrounding cultivators and at the same time, they competed with the Yuan clan cultivators, as if they wanted to win in terms of aura. The formation of the 10 Dharma laws Laozu immediately caused some of the cultivators who thought that they had some ability to spy on them to immediately retreat, one by one giving up on the idea of fishing in troubled waters. Other than Lu Ping, the Dharma laws adepts present all released their aura. Naturally, Lu Ping became the focus of everyone's attention. However, Lu Ping still had a calm expression on his face, as if he didn't care about the attention of the crowd. He looked very much like a spoiled brat from some sects. Tianqin Laozu glanced at Lu Ping, then smiled bitterly at Xiao Yuhuan and the others, saying, "This junior brother of mine has been spoiled rotten by the elders in the sect. Even I can't do anything about him. Sisters, please don't blame him." Chapter 545. Not counting Lu Ping, the fake Dharma phase cultivator, the formation of 10 Dharma phase Laozu cultivators was enough to scare away all the cultivators spying on them. At this moment, the thick poisonous fog that had gathered in the central area suddenly began to dissipate, and the hidden treasure underground finally took shape. Yuan Luo said something to a late core forging cultivator behind her. Xiao Yuhuan turned to Moongai Laozu of the Heavenly Moon sect and said with a smile, "Our overseas cultivators rarely practice earth attribute spells. I wonder if any of senior sister Moongai's disciples practice earth attribute spells?" Moongai Laozu looked behind him and saw an ordinary-looking but tall woman walk out from behind him. Moongai Laozu gave the woman a few instructions. The woman raised her head and looked at the late core forging cultivator who walked out from the Yuan clan. Then, with an expressionless face, She and the cultivator called out by Yuan Luo stood at the forefront of the central area. The cultivator from the Yuan clan let out a loud roar as both of his hands slammed onto the ground beneath his feet. Meanwhile, the female cultivator from the Heavenly Moon sect lifted her right leg up and then dropped it down. The two of them seemed to have used their spells at the same time. The entire ground suddenly trembled under the joint attack of the two, as if there was an earthquake. Fortunately, both of their spells were directed towards the central open space. After their quintessential chi and magic power converged underground, they intertwined with each other. This way, they could monitor each other's quintessential chi and the operation of their spells, making it impossible for them to hide from each other. The soil in the central area suddenly began to tumble. The things hidden underground followed the tumbling of the soil and came out one by one. However, to everyone's surprise, there were not only 5 treasures that came out of the ground, but a large pile. Everyone present was an accomplished cultivator, so they naturally saw the rather valuable items in the pile of items. Lu Ping naturally searched for treasures among these things. However, many of the cultivators present had higher cultivation and knowledge than him. Although Lu Ping didn't know if the treasures he wanted would fall into his hands, it was good to increase his knowledge. There were 6 spiritual items, 4 wondrous items, 4 mutated spiritual materials, and 3 other items. There were a total of 17 items, causing all the cultivators present to be shocked. They did not expect that there would be so many treasures hidden in this open space, which was only 200 to 300 zhong in length and width. Looking at the 3 low-grade heaven rank spirit items among the 6 spirit items, the cultivators on both sides didn't speak for a long time. It was as if the agreement between the two sides was about to expire at this moment. In an instant, the two sides began to fight, and all the cultivators' hearts were filled with greed. At this time, Xiao Yuhuan Laozu suddenly chuckled and said, "Since the things underground are here, we can start to distribute them. I think Yuan clan will abide by their promise." At this time, Yuan Luo glanced at Xiao Yuhuan and said in a deep voice, "Fellow Daoist Xiao, don't worry. I, Yuan Luo, will not ruin the reputation of Yuan clan that has been accumulated for tens of thousands of years for a few spirit items." Xiao Yuhuan smiled and said, "Yuhuan naturally believes in the name of Yuan clan." Although she sounded like she did not care, a hint of relief flashed through her eyes. Although the Yuan family was only equivalent to a large martial institution in the world of cultivation, as long as they had some status in the world of cultivation, they would be able to stand on equal footing with those large martial institutions. If the Yuan family really turned against them, even if the Carefree School could gain the upper hand for now, they would still be suppressed by the Yuan family in the future. The 3 low-grade heaven-rank spirit items were the wind-attributed flowing wind feather, the water-attributed liquid ink, and the earth-attributed black inkstone. Xiao Yuhuan pondered for a moment, then directly ordered the tall female cultivator who had previously used her magical power to dig out all the spirit items underground with the other cultivator from Yuan clan, Marshal Niece Jianxing, "You go pick one first." The tall female cultivator, spiritual master Jianxing, was stunned when she heard this. She looked at Moongazer Laozu of Heavenly Moon sect. She was originally a disciple of Heavenly Moon sect, and as usual, she should be the first choice of Carefree faction. However, Xiao Yuhuan Laozu gave this opportunity to her, which meant that the right to choose the spirit item was given to Heavenly Moon sect. Moongazer Laozu smiled and said to Xiao Yuhuan Laozu, who was next to him, "This is a favor from junior sister." Xiao Yuhuan smiled and said, "This time, senior sister Moongazer has already helped my Carefree faction greatly by coming overseas. How can this heaven rank spirit item be enough to repay you?" Moongazer Laozu giggled and said, "In that case, I won't be polite." Seeing Moongazer Laozu nod, the tall female cultivator was immediately overjoyed. She directly stepped forward and picked up the earth-attributed black inkstone. This female disciple was also a late core forging cultivator. When the 3 heaven rank spirit items were unearthed, her gaze had already been fixed on this black inkstone. Similarly, the late core forging cultivator from the Yuan clan, who also cultivated an earth-attributed cultivation method, was also paying attention to this black inkstone. He was not a direct descendant of the Yuan clan, so when he saw that the black inkstone had been picked by spiritual master Jianxing, an expression of regret appeared on his face. The disciples of the Carefree faction and Heavenly Moon sect behind spiritual master Dianxing all revealed envious gazes, especially the disciples of the Carefree faction. In the overseas cultivation world, Earth-attributed spirit items rarely appeared. Thus, Earth-attributed spirit items were generally second only to spiritual fires of the same rank in the overseas cultivation world. Of course, there were some special spirit items, such as the primordial heavy water that Lu Ping had smelted. In addition to containing the spirituality of a heaven-rank spirit item, the primordial heavy water could also increase the density of a cultivator's true essence to an unimaginable level. In reality, the spirituality of the primordial heavy water itself was not much different from that of an ordinary heaven-rank spirit item. It was only because after smelting the primordial heavy water, a cultivator's cultivation realm would be slowed down to an appalling level. Thus, it was classified as a low-grade heaven-rank spirit item by the cultivation world. Unless the cultivator who smelted the primordial heavy water was like Lu Ping, who was already a powerful alchemy grandmaster, had a continuous supply of good cultivation pills to support his cultivation, and was able to survive a few life-threatening encounters, then the primordial heavy water's effect on one's cultivation could be minimized. The second item was chosen by the Yuan clan. The black jade liquid was actually a water-attributed spirit item that contained a highly toxic poison. It was also a relatively special heaven and earth treasure. However, the poison attached to this spirit item was even more annoying than the primordial heavy water, which slowed down a cultivator's cultivation speed. A late-stage core forging realm cultivator from the Yuan clan also came out, took the black jade liquid in his hand, and immediately retreated. There was only one flowing wind feather left, which was also a low-grade heaven-rank spirit item. Naturally, the Carefree faction would not let it go. A female cultivator wearing a light muslin, under Xiao Yuhuan's command, put away the flowing wind feather. The fourth item was chosen by the Yuan clan. At this time, there were still 3 heaven and earth spirit items on the ground, 2 were high-grade earth spirit items, and 1 was low-grade earth spirit item. The low-grade earth spirit item was naturally ignored by the cultivators of the Yuan clan. Of the 2 high-grade earth spirit items, 1 was a heaven and earth spirit fire, and the other was a wind-attributed spirit item. Yuan Luo didn't even think about it and put away the heaven and earth spirit fire. The most important reason why the value of a heaven and earth spirit fire was far higher than other spirit items of the same grade was that every heaven and earth spirit fire was the favorite of an alchemist and a tool refiner. And the important role and lofty status of an alchemist and a tool refiner in the cultivation world determined that the value of a heaven and earth spirit fire, which was sought after by them, would inevitably be much higher than other spirit items. A high-grade earth spirit fire was a treasure in the hands of an alchemy grandmaster that could increase the success rate of alchemy. If Lu Ping wanted to become an alchemy grandmaster, then the mid-grade earth spirit fire in his hands, the Eastern Purple Chi Flame, would more or less not be of much help. Therefore, when this heaven and earth spirit fire was chosen by the Yuan clan, Lu Ping's eyes twitched. Previously, although Lyra Laozu, under the influence of Lu Ping, had managed to keep the high-grade earth spirit fire from Laozu of the East Pole. Lyra Laozu had also asked him if he needed this heaven and earth spirit fire. Unfortunately, the heaven and earth spirit fire was fierce. Although it was good for tool refiner, it was not as good as the Eastern Purple Chi Flame for alchemy. Moreover, Lu Ping could see that Lyra Laozu seemed to be quite reluctant to part with this heaven and earth spirit fire. Daoist Xian Hui was her eldest disciple. Although he did not inherit her alchemy skills, he cultivated the same cultivation method as her. This heaven and earth spirit fire was just right for Daoist Xian Hui, so naturally, Lu Ping kindly declined. When it was Carefree School's turn to choose the 5th item, Xiao Yuhuan Laozu turned to Lyra Laozu and said with a smile, "Sister Shenqin, the good things have been taken away by us. Sister, you can choose the 5th item." Lyra Laozu did not mind. She directly put away the high-grade earth spirit fire of wind attribute. In the eyes of these big sects, Zhenling's strength was nothing. If it were not for Lu Ping, the fake Laozu, increasing Lyra Laozu's weight at this time, perhaps Zhenling would at most be thanked by Carefree School in other ways. He would not be qualified to participate in the final distribution of the items. This was the role of strength. 1 round of 5 items, a total of 4 forces, one after another. Xiao Yuhuan continued to smile at Lyra Laozu and said, Sister Shenqin, this time, you go first. Lyra Laozu declined and said, Senior Sister Yuhuan, how can I do that? This junior sister came the latest and did not make any effort at all. Xiao Yuhuan still smiled and said, Young sister, don't be so polite. If you hadn't arrived in time, the order of distribution would have been reversed. Previously, young sister only got a high-grade earth-grade Fey, and it already made big sister feel bad. If young sister doesn't choose first this time, then it would be looking down on big sister. Lu Ping heard this and pursed his lips. The most precious 3 heaven spirit fire and 2 high-grade earth spirit fire already had their respective owners. Although the remaining things were also treasures, even Lu Ping did not care about them, let alone these cultivators from the big sects. Well, that's not right. In fact, there is one thing that looks quite interesting. Lu Ping's eyes flickered with blue light. He looked thoughtfully at a blood-red stone in the distance. Chapter 546. Tianqin Laozu saw that she couldn't refuse, so she prepared to go forward and put away the low-level earth-tier spirit item. However, just as Tianqin Laozu was about to step forward, she heard Lu Ping's voice. Tianqin Laozu was startled and looked at a blood-red stone on the ground. Although this stone looked like a pretty good spirit material, it was only a second-tier spirit material at best. Compared to the few rare spirit materials on the ground, this stone looked very ordinary. Tianqin Laozu knew that Lu Ping wouldn't speak without thinking. Her eyes also flashed with a light. It was obviously a type of eye technique, but in the end, her face showed disappointment. It was obvious that she didn't gain anything. In the eyes of a cultivator like Tianqin Laozu, the difference between a spirit material and a spirit material didn't matter. Although Tianqin Laozu didn't understand, she still put away the blood-red stone in front of everyone's surprised eyes. Sister Shenqin, why did you choose this item? It's only a spirit material. Could it be that this item has some use that others don't know? Xiao Yuhuan Laozu looked at Tianqin Laozu with a surprised expression. Tianqin Laozu helplessly pointed at Lu Ping and said, There's no other way. My junior wants this item, so I can only fulfill his wish. Lu Ping took the bloodstone from Tianqin Laozu and quietly played with it in his hand. Then, he put it into his storage ring. Moongazer Laozu of the Heavenly Moon sect looked at the bloodstone in Lu Ping's hand and asked thoughtfully, I wonder if Lu Daoyu can answer the doubts in my heart? Lu Ping had a questioning expression and said, Among these items, this is the only one I haven't seen before. If it's a spirit material, wouldn't I have profited? Is there any doubt? Lu Ping's words caused Moongazer Laozu to be stunned. Finally, he looked at the helpless Tianqin Laozu and seemed to understand something, so he didn't ask any more. The rest of the low-grade Earth-class spirit items and the 3 special items were divided up by the Yuan clan, the Carefree School, and the Heavenly Moon sect. After that, the Sky Qin ancestor picked the remaining 2 items, but they were just some spirit materials. The Yuan clan quickly said their goodbyes. The Carefree sect and the Heavenly Moon sect seemed to be together. Xiao Yuhuan turned to Tianqin Laozu and asked, Sister Shenqin, can you explore a few areas with us to find some treasures? If Sister Shenqin and Junior Tianping join us, we will have a higher chance of breaking through some of the more dangerous areas. Tianqin Laozu didn't dare to agree. Lu Ping was just a fake. Previously, he didn't work hard, which was already suspicious. If he stayed with the cultivators of the Carefree sect and the Heavenly Moon sect, Lu Ping was afraid that he would soon be exposed. So, he replied with a smile, my junior brother also found a few islands that are suspected to have hidden treasures. Now he wants to go and have a look. I'm really sorry. In the future, Shenqin will definitely come to the Carefree sect to visit you sisters. Lu Ping was really helpless with Tianqin Laozu's way of pushing all the blame onto him. However, she was an elder, so Lu Ping could only accept it. He also had to pretend that this was how it should be. In the eyes of others, he was as hateful as he could be. Xiao Yuhuan glanced at Lu Ping and said, since it's like this, Sister Shenqin must be careful on the way. The fallen archipelago has already been open for more than 2 months. I'm afraid that in a few days, the density of the poisonous fog will rise again. These few days will be the most dangerous time. Xiao Yuhuan paused, then said, 3 months later, the treasured ship of the Carefree sect to the Heavenly Moon sect will set off. If Sister Shenqin has time, why don't you go to the Carefree Palace and send the treasured ship away together? Tianqin Laozu looked at the moongazer Laozu of the Heavenly Moon sect and asked with some surprise, treasured ship? Could it be that the sect has already built the treasured ship so quickly? There are countless dangers in the Broken Ocean, as well as the blockade of the Demon Clan and the harassment of murderers on the way. Without a good treasured ship, it is impossible to reach the Middle Earth. Xiao Yuhuan let out a long sigh and said, time waits for no man. I presume you're aware of the current situation in the cultivation world. Fortunately, my sect once discovered a damaged treasured ship during an expedition. Even though it was severely damaged, the main body of the treasured ship was still intact. When the time comes, Senior Sister Yu Chan will personally escort it. I presume it won't be too dangerous to arrive at the Middle Earth. After hearing this, Tianqin Laozu also understood and said with a smile, if Big Sister Yu Chan personally goes, it will naturally be foolproof. I will definitely go to see you off. Tianqin Laozu took Lu Ping all the way out of the island. The two avoided some large islands and specifically looked for some remote islands to stay. Tianqin Laozu looked back at Lu Ping and said, tell me, why did you choose that blood-red stone? You should know that for this stone, your martial uncle, I, gave up a low-grade earth-rank spirit object. For our sect, this means that we will have one less mid-core forging realm cultivator who can condense a high-grade gold core in the future. In fact, Lu Ping was still brooding over the low-grade earth-grade spirit item because it was a wood elemental spirit item. It was perfect for Hu Lily to refine to advance to the mid-core forging realm. Although Hu Lily's current cultivation base was still far from being able to refine a low-grade earth-grade spirit item, with Lu Ping's minor forging spirit pellet and the improved version of the minor forging spirit pellet, these problems were no longer a problem. Hearing Tianqin Laozu's question, Lu Ping scratched his head and said, in fact, Disciple also doesn't know what this blood-red stone is. I just feel that this stone is of great use to Disciple, so I earnestly asked Martial Uncle to take this stone in advance, so as to prevent others from obtaining it. Is that the reason? Lu Ping said in a deadpan manner, that's the reason. Tianqin Laozu rolled his eyes and said, it would be strange if I believed you. Lu Ping also knew that this explanation couldn't be hidden, so he could only laugh foolishly. Fortunately, Tianqin Laozu didn't seem to be entangled in this matter. Instead, his eyes looked around, causing Lu Ping's heart to jump. He knew that something bad was about to happen. Sure enough, Tianqin Laozu giggled and said, since it is because of you, our sect lost an opportunity to obtain a low-grade earth-rank spirit object, then this loss will be recorded on you. In the future, when you return to the sect, you only need to hand over a treasure similar to the low-grade earth-rank spirit object. Lu Ping helplessly smiled and said, Disciple obeys. When Tianqin Laozu saw that Lu Ping agreed so reluctantly, he couldn't help but be a little dissatisfied, and said, you will still be short of this treasure? Don't think that I, your martial uncle, don't know your name in our sect, Treasure Boy, when I was in the East Sea. You bid 1,500 high-grade spirit stones at the Fantasy Spirit Cities auction. In addition to other elixirs and treasures, you alone won 2.5 treasures. This kind of extravagance is comparable to ordinary Fa Xiong Laozu. How many treasures did our sect get in total this time? With your wealth, who can you hide it from? Tianqin Laozu paused, seeming to feel that he didn't say it clearly, so he continued, since ancient times, there is no need to worry about scarcity, but about inequality. You are a disciple of the same sect, why is your net worth at an unimaginable level, while your senior sisters and senior brothers are still haggling over 100 or 200 high-grade spirit stones? Although you may have exchanged these things with your life, will others think so? Lu Ping's heart was heavy after hearing Tianqin Laozu's words, and he didn't know how to respond. Tianqin Laozu seemed to feel that he had said enough. Seeing Lu Ping like this, he said, you don't have to worry about this, of course, no one will touch you now. After all, you are the most outstanding third-generation disciple of the sect, and Liu Tianling is also very notorious in the North Sea for being protective of his children. But once your cultivation stagnates one day, or if someone more amazing than you appears in the sect, or if you keep revealing your net worth like this, there will be people who will constantly come out to plot against you. Therefore, the most important thing is still your own strength. If you have the cultivation of the Dharma stage now, or if you continue to cultivate at such a rapid speed without damaging your foundation, the sect will continue to protect you. Lu Ping nodded unconsciously. Tianqin Laozu was pleased to see this, so he said a few more words. Now that our sect is in a period of rising, and there are a few Dharma Laozu suppressing us, all the practitioners in the sect are working together, so there is a lot less internal strife, but this does not mean that there is no internal strife. Liu Tianling has always been strong in the sect, and now that she has become a deacon with real power, which is equivalent to the head of the sect, and also has that hypocrite Jiang Tianlin to give her advice, I am afraid that she will be even more complacent, and who knows how many more people she will offend. If Liu Tianling dies in the future, if there is no successor in the Chonghua sect, it will definitely be suppressed. Although your second senior sister is a hard worker, at most she can barely reach the early Dharma phase. With this level of cultivation, she will not be able to withstand the internal suppression of the sect in the future. Although Lu Ping felt that there was indeed a force in the sect that seemed to be against him, or against the teacher behind him, and he also thought that someone was trying to suppress the Chonghua sect, he did not expect that the crisis that the Chonghua sect might face in the future would be so serious. However, what was even more strange in Lu Ping's heart was that if there was anyone in the sect who did not get along with his teacher, it would probably be this person in front of him. Although this person's return to the sect had greatly increased the strength of Zhenling, wasn't it also an eyesore for his teacher who was about to take charge of the sect? As the most outstanding existence among the second-generation disciples of Zhenling, the grievances between the two back then were known to many of the third-generation disciples who had been practicing for a long time. Naturally, Tianqin Laozu was the best tool to check and balance the teacher Liu Tianling. Lu Ping vaguely felt that Tianqin Laozu's words today seemed to be specially said to him, as if she was explaining something to him. Lu Ping vaguely had a rough idea in his heart, but in his heart, it was just a guess. Chapter 547. What do you plan to do next? Are you coming with me, or do you have your own plans? Seeing that Lu Ping was secretly thinking about the meaning of her words, Tianqin Laozu knew that Lu Ping had already remembered her words. Her goal had been achieved, so she asked. As for whether Lu Ping could understand her meaning now, Tianqin Laozu did not take it to heart. As long as he remembered it, he would eventually understand her painstaking efforts in the future. Lu Ping thought for a while and took out a map made of unknown materials from his storage magic tool. This map was an incomplete map. After Lu Ping killed the alchemy master of the Crystal Palace, Peng Shiyuan, he obtained it from him. At that time, the cultivators of the Liao family also rushed over to kill Peng Shiyuan. Their purpose was to obtain something. Although Lu Ping did not know what the Liao family wanted, after Lu Ping sorted out the items on Peng Shuan's body, he felt that only this incomplete map was the most suspicious. However, Lu Ping could not find any clues from this incomplete map. However, just when Lu Ping and Tianqin Laozu came to the small island where the Carefree School, Heavenly Moon Sect, and Yuan family were confronting each other, and just when the two sides were arguing about how to distribute the treasures that were about to be unearthed, Lu Ping suddenly discovered to his surprise that along the way with Tianqin Laozu, the scene along the way, including the distribution and terrain of the island, was very similar to the incomplete map that Lu Ping had been pondering about for a long time. After Lu Ping and the others came to the island, the terrain of the island made Lu Ping even more certain that the distribution of the islands in this area was indeed the same as the islands on the corner of the incomplete map. Tianqin Laozu saw Lu Ping take out a broken map from his storage magic tool. She thought of something and asked, "Is this the map of the fallen archipelago?" Lu Ping nodded and said, "I didn't know before. It was only after Marshal Uncle came here that I found out that this incomplete map is actually a map of the various islands in the depths of the fallen archipelago." Tianqin Laozu took the map from Lu Ping and looked at it. She quickly nodded and said, "It is indeed so. It seems that the location shown in the center of this incomplete map is very particular. Lu Ping thought for a while and said, Martial Uncle, did you notice that when the Yuan family left the island, the direction they went was exactly in the center marked on the incomplete map? Hearing this, Tianqin Laozu took a closer look and suddenly frowned. He said, it is true. The location shown in the center of this map must be very strange. And according to what you just said, Peng Xiuan seems to have stolen this map from the Lu family in the Central Plains. So, the Crystal Palace, the Lu family, and the Yuan family may all know this area and have come here. At that time, when the three parties fight, maybe we will have a chance to fish in troubled waters. Lu Ping was startled by Tianqin Laozu's words and hurriedly said, Martial Uncle, these three families are all outstanding in the cultivation world. If the practitioners of these three families are really here, the Yuan family alone has 4 Dharma realms Laozu. The Lu family is not weak either. I am afraid that the Crystal Palace's strength will be even stronger. If the three families are really fighting for a rare treasure, how can we fight against so many practitioners with just the 2 of us? Maybe we will be besieged by them first. Tianqin Laozu giggled and said, it seems that you have not been blinded by the temptation of treasures. But since this map matches the Fallen Archipelago, then this mark must be a very important place. If we really don't go and check it out, I think you will not be satisfied. This time, we are just going to act according to the circumstances. If the three parties really fight, the movement will not be small. There must be people hiding around and watching, so we will not attract too much attention. As for the opportunity to fish in troubled waters, it does not only mean taking advantage of the three families. Lu Ping looked at Tianqin Laozu with a dumbfounded expression. Lu Ping always thought that he was very bold, but he did not expect that Tianqin Laozu's appetite was even bigger, so he cautiously said, Martial Uncle, even so, the practitioners who dare to spy on the three parties must be Dharma realms Laozu. Although Martial Uncle's cultivation is superb, I can't help you. At that time, I am afraid that you will also be in a difficult situation. What's more, it is easy to dodge a spear in the open, but difficult to guard against an arrow in the dark. Martial Uncle, you should be careful. Tianqin Laozu looked at Lu Ping amusedly and said, you really don't want to go? Lu Ping was stunned for a moment and then said with an embarrassed smile, of course I will go, but it is not a wise thing for Martial Uncle to participate in the fight. Tianqin Laozu's expression showed that he had expected it and said, that's good. The 2 of them flew deeper into the Fallen Archipelago according to the direction marked on the map. After a full 3 days, although Tianqin Laozu, a Dharma realms cultivator, led the way, the 2 of them still walked in an extremely awkward manner. In the depths of the Fallen Archipelago, not only was the concentration of the poisonous fog much thicker than the periphery, but the number of poisonous beasts on the island was also much more frequent and large than before, so the 2 of them could not kill anymore. Even with Tianqin Laozu's Dharma realms cultivation, the consumption of zhenqi was a big headache. However, this also made Tianqin Laozu have a deeper understanding of Lu Ping's cultivation. Lu Ping's strength was naturally far less than Tianqin Laozu's, but the ability to continue fighting brought by the rich zhenqi made Tianqin Laozu look at him in a new light. In Tianqin Laozu's opinion, even a cultivator of the 8th or 9th stage of the core forging stage might not be able to fight for such a long time like Lu Ping, without worrying about the exhaustion of zhenqi. It was precisely because of this that Tianqin Laozu, who had originally thought that Lu Ping would become her burden, was able to save a lot of zhenqi, so she could quickly take Lu Ping to the most dangerous place in the depths of the Fallen Archipelago. Of course, when the 2 of them went to the depths of the Fallen Archipelago, they also had a lot of harvests along the way. Both of them were masters of alchemy, and Tianqin Laozu was an alchemy grandmaster. The deeper into the central area of the Fallen Archipelago, the more dangerous it was, but the density of the spirit grasses growing there was also greatly increased. Along the way, the 2 of them had collected more than 303,000-year-old spirit grasses. In the middle of the journey, the 2 of them even encountered 2 places where the poisonous fog gathered, but unfortunately, they only harvested a strange item and a high-grade Xian-level spirit item. Lu Ping asked Tianqin Laozu for the wind attribute strange item and gave it to Lu Bai to condense her protective aura, while the spirit item was kept by Tianqin Laozu. In the distance, there was a rumbling sound, and the direction of the sound was the central area marked on the map. It seems that the battle ahead has begun, Tianqin Laozu said with a dignified expression. We are still too late. Lu Ping's face looked a little pale because of the long period of fighting with the poisonous beasts. After hearing the roar of fighting in the distance, he said with some regret. Isn't that better? Tianqin Laozu smiled slightly, and his figure suddenly sped up again. Lu Ping had no choice but to swallow a good recovery medicinal pill, and then held an upper-grade spirit stone in each hand. A light flashed, and Lu Ping's figure suddenly turned into water and dissipated. When he reappeared, he was already 10 feet behind Tianqin Laozu. Looking at the increasing distance between the two, although Lu Ping knew that this was mainly because of the difference in cultivation between the two, Lu Ping still sighed in his heart. It seems that I really should find a flying magic tool for myself. Now in the overseas cultivation world, the shortcomings of Lu Ping's lack of a flying magic tool are not obvious, but once in the central earth, without the support of the endless sea under his feet, Lu Ping's escape technique will be greatly reduced. The roar was getting louder and louder, and it seemed that the place where the battle broke out was only a few miles away from here. At this moment, Tianqin Laozu suddenly stopped flying. Lu Ping finally reached Tianqin Laozu's side, and his face was even slightly sweating. Tianqin Laozu looked at Lu Ping and said with a smile, the richness of your Jin Yuan has reached an incredible level. Usually when you fight with others, you rarely run out of Jin Yuan, right? Tianqin Laozu did not wait for Lu Ping to answer, and said, now you first recover your Jin Yuan, see if there is any difference. Lu Ping then circulated the true essence in his body according to the cultivation method. Sure enough, he found that every time the true essence completed a cycle in his bloodline, the amount of true essence he recovered was higher than the usual amount. Lu Ping looked happy, and when he turned to look at Tianqin Laozu, he saw that Tianqin Laozu was looking into the distance with a dignified face. Lu Ping followed Tianqin Laozu's gaze, and saw that in the sky a few miles away, rays of light had already illuminated the sky, which was originally covered by the poisonous fog, into a pale white color. Lu Ping's eyes flashed with a green light, and the scene a few miles away became much clearer in his eyes. He saw that in the pale white, countless rays of light were flashing, and each ray of light was accompanied by an earth-shattering sound. Every loud sound had the power to move mountains and fill up the seas. This was what a battle between Dharma adepts should be like. Every move they made was followed by their words, and they had great power. Tianqin Laozu saw the green light flashing in Lu Ping's eyes, and asked, what kind of eye technique do you practice? Can you see the scene a few miles away? Lu Ping's practice of the 3 pure eyes was not a secret in Zhenling, and naturally, there was no need to hide it from Tianqin Laozu. Thus, he shook his head and said, I practice the 3 pure eyes. Now that I'm affected by the battle, I can only see the general situation of both sides, and I can't distinguish between each adept. Tianqin Laozu was a little surprised and asked, isn't this senior sister Xuanzhen's best technique? Senior sister Xianchen was able to become our sect's only array master, and the power of this technique was of great help to her. I didn't think that you would be able to learn such a secret technique from her. It looks like she values you very much. Lu Ping knew that this was mainly because of Hu Lily, but Lu Ping naturally would not explain anything. He just smiled and did not say anything. Chapter 548. Tianqin Laozu thought for a moment, then turned his head and said, the battle is so intense, it is obvious that they have encountered a rare treasure. And judging from the roars coming from afar, it seems like it is not a chaotic battle like you said. However, there are all kinds of spells flashing in the battle, and with the influence of the grey poisonous fog, it is difficult for me to distinguish who the two sides are. I can only take the risk and go forward to explore. As Tianqin Laozu finished speaking, his body moved forward again, and at the same time, he tried to hide the aura around his body. As for Lu Ping, he did not take off the stone armor on his body, and followed closely behind Tianqin Laozu, once again approaching the direction of the battle. Uncle Master, have you noticed that there are Dharma adepts from other sects in the surrounding void, hiding and spying on us? Lu Ping suddenly thought of something and asked Tianqin Laozu, who was beside him. Not at the moment. It seems that this place is indeed an extremely secretive place. Very few practitioners can find this place. No wonder these people dare to fight here without any fear of being discovered. Just as Tianqin Laozu and Lu Ping were only 4 or 5 miles away from the battle, Lu Ping and Tianqin Laozu could use their respective eye sorcery to barely observe the battle from all sides. However, just as the celestial zither ancestor's eyes flickered with a golden light, a furious roar suddenly exploded like thunder from the people engaged in battle. "Who is there?" Scram. A sound wave rolled towards Tianqin Laozu. This was the voice of Yuan Guang Laozu from the Crystal Palace. Tianqin's expression changed, and she quickly retreated. Lu Ping, who was beside her, was not affected, as if he had not been discovered. However, when he saw Tianqin Laozu retreating, he did not dare to move forward alone, so he also retreated. Just as the two of them retreated, a spirit light broke through the air, like a meteor, and smashed into the place where the two of them were just hiding. After the roar stopped shaking, Lu Ping saw that the ground where the two of them were just standing, there was a large pit several feet wide. Black dirty water kept coming out from the ground, and in a moment, it had filled up most of the pit. Temporarily escaping from the attack of Yuan Guang Laozu, Tianqin Laozu looked at Lu Ping with a serious expression and asked, "What did you just see?" Lu Ping's expression also became a bit ugly, and he said, "The Xianling sect cultivators seem to be inside, and they are fighting together with the Crystal Palace cultivators. On the other side, besides the 4 Dharma adepts from the Yuan family, there are also 3 Dharma adepts, but I do not know who they are." Tianqin Laozu nodded and said, "My eye technique may not be as good as the 3 pure true eyes in seeing through some things, but in terms of seeing far and clearly, it is much better than your eye technique. The two sides of the battle are actually divided into 4 groups. Other than the Xianling sect's Laozu who joined forces with the Crystal Palace, there are also 3 Dharma adepts who joined forces with the Yuan family, and they seem to be from the Lu family of the Central Plains. The Yuan family and the Lu family joined forces, and there were a total of 8 Dharma adepts, among which there were 3 mid-Dharma adepts. On the side of the Crystal Palace, although there were also 8 Dharma adepts, there were only 2 mid-Dharma adepts, Yuan Guang Laozu and Dao Yang Laozu. From the looks of it, it seemed that the combined strength of the Yuan family and the Lu family was stronger. However, in reality, it was the Crystal Palace that was suppressing the practitioners of the 2 families in the battle. Dao Yang Laozu was entangled with a mid-Dharma adept from the Lu family, and the remaining 7 Dharma adepts from the Crystal Palace, under the leadership of Yuan Guang Laozu, formed a strange 7-star formation. The 7 of them supported each other and took care of each other. They actually managed to trap the 2 mid-Dharma adepts from the Yuan family, as well as the other 5 early Dharma adepts, in the formation. The 7-star Big Dipper formation. This is a small-scale Big Dipper formation of the Crystal Palace. It has a great reputation in the East Sea. Although the Yuan family and the Lu family have joined forces, there is a lack of trust between them, and there is not much tacit understanding between them. Although the individual strength of the practitioners is stronger than that of the Crystal Palace, as a whole, they are completely suppressed by the Crystal Palace. Tianqin Laozu was still retreating. Only when he had retreated far enough did Tianqin Laozu say to Lu Ping, "Now is really not the time to take advantage of the situation. Once the 2 of us appear, I am afraid that the 2 sides in the battle will turn around and kill us first. However, did you notice that the last time I saw the Yuan family, the 5 Dharma adepts of the Yuan family had brought 7 or 8 late core forging adepts with them? Now, these adepts have disappeared. In the battle between the Dharma adepts and Laozu, these late core forging adepts will naturally go as far as they can." Speaking up to this point, Lu Ping's heart jumped, and he said, "Uncle, do you mean that you want to target these adepts?" Tianqin Laozu sneered and said, "This is the Fallen Archipelago. As long as you don't leave any traces, killing them is killing them. What else can you do?" However, these late-stage core forging cultivators from the Crystal Palace and the Yuan clan are not that easy to kill. These cultivators probably have life-saving methods given to them by their sects. Even if they don't have these methods, the Yuan clan and the Crystal Palace have their own Dao soldier array. As long as they work together in time, Even I will not be able to do anything in a short period of time. Unless you are really a Dharma adept, then the two of us will have a chance to kill the opponent's late-stage core forging cultivator instantly. Lu Ping understood what Tianqin Laozu meant and said with a smile, then let's find trouble with the Xianling sect or the Lu family. However, if the other party deliberately hides, I am afraid that it will be really difficult to find them. Tianqin Laozu didn't take it seriously and said, I'm just trying my luck. The most important thing is to see the situation on this island and see what kind of treasures these four sects are fighting for. Besides, I don't know if Xianling sect sent any late core forging cultivators into the Fallen Archipelago. Maybe it's the same as my Zhenling sect, where only Dao Xian followed the Crystal Palace into the Fallen Archipelago. Lu Ping nodded. At least this time, Tianqin Laozu didn't let the two late core forging adepts, Xian Sen and Xian Shu, follow her into the Fallen Archipelago. But Lu Ping was an exception. He sneaked in out of curiosity. In a remote part of the island, there was a flat land with an area of about half a hectare. The ground was densely covered with spirit grasses, almost half of which were at least 1,000 years old. Among the spirit grasses, there were also spirit grasses that were more than 3,000 years old. Tianqin Laozu and Lu Ping were hiding in a secluded place outside this remote mountain pass. At this time, in this wild spirit grass garden, a total of 9 late core forging adepts were gathering spirit grasses on the flatland in an orderly manner. These 9 adepts were very skilled in gathering spirit grasses. While they were gathering spirit grasses, they maintained a relatively fixed formation, as if they were guarding against something. Everything looked orderly. Obviously, these 9 adepts often appeared in some dangerous places, always on guard against accidents. These are cultivators from the Lu family, but one of them is Liao Ruanjia from the North Sea. It seems that these two families really have some kind of relationship. Tianqin Laozu observed for a moment, then said to Lu Ping. In fact, Lu Ping already knew that these 9 people were cultivators from the Lu family. In addition to Liao Ruanjia, the Lu family cultivator who was with Liao Ruanjia in Fantasy Spirit City, Lu Runjian, was also among them. Tianqin Laozu asked curiously, Martial Nephew Lu, how did you find this hidden place? If I hadn't come here with you, I would have thought that you had already been here. Lu Ping chuckled. He naturally wouldn't tell Tianqin Laozu that after Luan Yu advanced to the middle core forging stage, her innate magical ability had made great progress, and she had a natural intuition for some large-scale growth of spirit grasses. So he said, this is a secret technique disciple saw in an ancient book, but this secret technique is sometimes not effective. This time disciple was just lucky. I didn't expect to really find the location of such a spirit grass garden. Tianqin Laozu was too lazy to expose Lu Ping's simple lies, so he asked, look at the spirit grasses growing in the valley, do you find anything different? Lu Ping knew that Tianqin Laozu was referring to something, so he began to carefully examine the distribution of spirit grasses in the valley. Lu Ping himself was an alchemy grandmaster, so he had a good understanding of the growth habits of spirit grasses. Not to mention that he had learned many secret techniques of the Wood Luan clan from Luan Yu, so he had a better understanding of the cultivation and growth characteristics of spirit grasses. All he lacked was personal experience like Tianqin Laozu. So after Tianqin Laozu pointed out that something was wrong, Lu Ping immediately found clues from the growth and distribution of spirit grasses in the valley. Lu Ping asked with some confusion, Martial Uncle, something is wrong. These spirit grasses grow together, but their medicinal properties are different. Their growth habits are also different, and some are even opposite. Yet, these spirit grasses can grow together peacefully. Not only do they not weaken each other, but they are also flourishing. This is a bit strange. Tianqin Laozu nodded with appreciation, saying, that's right. What kind of power can do this? If we can figure this out, perhaps we will be able to know the reason why the cultivators of the Crystal Palace are fighting on the island. The first reason that flashed through Lu Ping's mind was the Wonder Dew, but he still asked, could it be the growing soil? Tianqin Laozu shook her head, saying, although the growing soil is precious and can greatly shorten the growth time of spirit grasses, the growing soil itself is condensed together. unless a cultivator crushed the growing soil into powder and scattered it into the spirit grass's garden. Although this spirit grass's garden is flourishing, it is obviously naturally formed. Moreover, the growing soil is unable to make spirit grasses with completely opposite medicinal properties grow together. Lu Ping pondered for a moment, then asked, could it be the wonder dew? Tianqin Laozu was silent for a moment, then said, if it is the growing soil, then it is also possible. The growing soil was a middle heaven rank earth attribute spirit item. It was a heavenly treasure no weaker than the wonder dew, but the possibility of an earth attribute spirit item of this grade appearing overseas was obviously not high. Chapter 549. Tianqin Laozu and Lu Ping observed for a moment and found that the 9 people had a tacit understanding. If Tianqin Laozu launched a sneak attack, even if he could seriously injure 1 or 2 of them, it would be difficult for him to escape unscathed. Once the Lu family's Dharma phase cultivators were attracted, it would be even more difficult for Tianqin Laozu to escape unscathed. Lu Ping said helplessly, Martial uncle, I'm afraid we don't have a chance. How about we go somewhere else first? Tianqin Laozu whispered with a smile, don't worry, the show is about to begin. Lu Ping looked around suspiciously but found nothing. This place was located in the center of the fallen archipelago. The concentration of the poisonous fog was much higher than the periphery. Lu Ping's divine sense only dared to wander a few hundred feet around him. It was difficult to find anything unless his cultivation had reached the Dharma phase. While Lu Ping was carefully searching around the valley, a loud rumbling sound suddenly came from outside the valley. Even the ground began to tremble from the loud rumbling sound. The Lu family cultivators reacted quickly and immediately formed a Dao soldier formation. They looked at the entrance of the valley with bright eyes. However, what made the Lu family cultivators' expressions change was that it was not cultivators who rushed in from outside the valley, but a large group of poisonous beasts. These poisonous beasts seemed to be stimulated by something. After seeing the Lu family cultivators, they immediately rushed towards the 9 Lu family cultivators like crazy. Light flashed beneath the feet of the 9 Lu family cultivators as they attempted to fly up into the sky. However, the various poisonous beasts with blood-red eyes used the cliffs and rocks on both sides of the valley to climb up. Then, they quickly turned around and pounced on the Lu family cultivators. However, before these poisonous beasts could even reach the Lu clan cultivators, they had already been turned into minced meat by the 9 cultivators. However, after going berserk, these unintelligent poisonous beasts lost all fear and only knew how to charge at the human cultivators one after another. The Lu family cultivators did their best to fly up into the sky to avoid the onslaught of the poisonous beasts on the ground. However, just as they were about to make contact with the poisonous beasts beneath them, several beams of light suddenly descended from above them. Accompanied by a world-shaking roar, the beams of light forced the Lu family cultivators back down into the valley. Lu Ping asked Tianqin Laozu, so someone is playing tricks? The corners of the celestial zither ancestors' lips curled into a sneer. Do you really think that these mindless poisonous beasts will gather together and find this valley to attack? Just as the hundreds of ferocious poisonous beasts were slaughtered by the 9 Lu clan cultivators, a group of water crystal palace cultivators appeared on the other side of the cliff where Lu Ping was lying in ambush. At the spot where the Lu clan cultivators were forced to stop flying, they started attacking the Lu clan cultivators in the valley from a high vantage point. Naturally, the Lu family cultivators had long since guessed that there was something fishy about the arrival of the poisonous beasts. Thus, they were already prepared for a sneak attack. However, the battle against the poisonous beasts had exhausted too much of the Lu family cultivators' primary energy. Additionally, the cultivators from Water Crystal Palace had also come prepared. Thus, they quickly suppressed the Lu family cultivators within the valley and gained the upper hand. The Crystal Palace is a famous sect in the cultivation world. Today, you attacked my Lu family cultivators for no reason. Are you not afraid of provoking the central and overseas cultivation world? Do you really think my Lu family is easy to mess with? The one who spoke was the leader of the late core forging realm cultivators, Lu Runjian. Haha, how hilarious. Since when has your Lu clan been able to represent the cultivation world of the Central Plains? If this was said by a cultivator from the Yuan family, the Crystal Palace might consider it. But who do you think you are? A family that is not even a large sect. Just because you know a few alchemy skills, you even dared to attack and kill the alchemy master of the Crystal Palace. Now you even dare to enter the secret area of the overseas cultivation world to collect treasures. Do you really think that the Crystal Palace is made of mud? The leader of the Crystal Palace cultivators who besieged the Lu family cultivators on the cliff finally explained the reason why the Crystal Palace attacked the Lu family. Lu Runjian's face immediately darkened. He said coldly, "Your sect's Peng Shiyuan was not killed by the Lu family cultivators. He died in the North Sea. Our Lu family has always been in the central cultivation world. His death should be more suspicious of the sects in the North Sea. You dare to attack our Lu family cultivators unscrupulously. Although the Crystal Palace is powerful, we are not afraid. We will fight you to the end." Beside Lu Ping, Tianqin Laozu snorted coldly and said, "The Lu family put the blame on the sects in the North Sea for the death of the Crystal Palace cultivators. Now that Xianling sect and the Crystal Palace are in a heated battle, the most likely person to kill the Crystal Palace cultivators in the North Sea is me, Zhenling." Although Lu Ping knew that Lu Runjian's words might be to absolve the Lu family and not to put the blame on the sects in the North Sea, if the Crystal Palace really believed Lu Runjian's words, then the next sect that the Crystal Palace would deal with would be Zhenling. Naturally, Lu Ping was also very dissatisfied with Lu Runjian's words. Not to mention that Peng Shiyuan was originally killed by Lu Ping and Yin Shenchu. The Crystal Palace cultivator laughed strangely and scolded, "Since your Lu family is in the Middle Earth, how do you know that junior brother Peng Shiyuan has fallen? How do you know that he died in the North Sea? Aren't you a thief crying thief?" At first, the Crystal Palace was only suspicious, but now we are certain. Since you dare to kill the alchemy master of the Crystal Palace, even the great sects in the Middle Earth can't protect your Lu family. After saying that, the cultivators from Water Crystal Palace suddenly leapt down from the cliff. They charged towards the cultivators from the Lu family, who had been suppressed by the cultivators from Water Crystal Palace to the point where they were incapable of fighting back. In the blink of an eye, one of the wounded cultivators from the Lu family fell to the cultivators from Water Crystal Palace. The formation formed by the 9 Lu family cultivators immediately collapsed because of the death of one of them. The 8 cultivators fought on their own and were soon surrounded by the Crystal Palace cultivators. Another wretched cry rang out. Another Lu clan cultivator with a cultivation base of level 7 core forging was killed by a cultivator from Water Crystal Palace. Lu Runjian watched as his disciples were wounded and killed by the cultivators from the Crystal Palace, one after another. His eyes had long since turned blood red. Bellowing furiously, Lu Runjian did his best to repel the cultivators from the Crystal Palace who were entangled with him. He wanted to save the disciples beside him. However, even more of the cultivators from the Crystal Palace joined forces to besiege him. Lu Ping and Lyra Laozu were lying in ambush on the other side of the cliff. Watching the battle in the valley, Lu Ping's expression became more and more serious. The Lu family cultivators were fighting against the cultivators from Water Crystal Palace. In a one-on-one fight between cultivators with the same cultivation base, the Lu family cultivators were clearly no match for the cultivators from Water Crystal Palace. Part of the reason for that was due to the fact that the Lu family was an alchemy family. Killing enemies was not their forte. However, the more important reason was that the cultivators from Water Crystal Palace were much stronger compared to cultivators on the same level as them. This was the foundation of a large sect. The Crystal Palace had dominated the seas for tens of thousands of years. Even in the Central Plains, they had an illustrious reputation. It was not an undeserved reputation. However, this was not the only thing that shocked Lu Ping. Lu Ping had seen the late and peak core forging stage cultivators of Zhenling, Chu Xiancheng, Guo Xianshan, and Liang Xianfeng. Compared to the 10 late core forging stage cultivators who were fighting the Lu family cultivators in the valley, almost every one of them was no weaker than Chu Xiancheng and Guo Xiancheng. They were only slightly weaker than Liang Xianfeng. Chu, Guo, and Liang could be said to be the best among the late core forging stage cultivators of Zhenling. They represented the highest combat power among the late core forging stage cultivators of Zhenling. And now, there were 8 or 9 such cultivators in the Crystal Palace. How many cultivators were there in the Crystal Palace, and how many of them were late core forging stage cultivators? There were definitely more than 8 or 9 late core forging stage cultivators in the Crystal Palace. Moreover, among the late core forging stage cultivators of the Crystal Palace, these cultivators were definitely not the strongest. Previously, Lu Ping's understanding of the gap between Zhenling and other large sects was that the large sects and even the large sects had far more Dharma adept Laozu and core forging stage cultivators than Zhenling. He never realized that these sects had so much heritage and resources to support such a huge consumption. How could they not improve the quality of the cultivators in the sects? This was the most fundamental reason why a sect could maintain its prosperity and continuous inheritance. On the other side, Liao Ruanjia's situation was much better than Lu Runjian's. Liao Ruanjia did not fight back with all his strength when the Crystal Palace cultivators rushed forward. Instead, he firmly guarded the 2 Lu family cultivators beside him so that they would not be separated by the Crystal Palace cultivators. Then, at the moment when the Lu family cultivators were in danger, Liao Ruanjia suddenly threw 3 fiery red pills at the Crystal Palace cultivators in front of him. Then, he ordered the 2 Lu family cultivators beside him to protect him from the encirclement of the other Crystal Palace cultivators. Liao Ruanjia only focused on dealing with the Crystal Palace cultivator in front of him, whose cultivation level was similar to his. After the 3 fiery red pills were thrown out, they quickly burst into 3 crimson flames. The 3 flames formed a triangular formation and moved towards the Crystal Palace cultivator who was fighting Liao Ruanjia. Intentional battle pill. Moreover, it was a high-grade intentional battle pill that connected a type of flame magic power into the pill. If these 3 intentional battle pills were made by Liao Ruanjia, then Liao Ruanjia's alchemy skills were probably only 1 step away from becoming an alchemy grandmaster. Lu Ping and Tianqin Laozu's eyes were very sharp. They could see through Liao Ruanjia's cultivation level at a glance. Although the intentional battle pill could refine a type of magic power or secret technique of an alchemy master into a pill, when the magic power in the intentional battle pill was activated by the cultivator, its power would be greatly reduced because it was no longer controlled by the cultivator's spiritual sense. It was only about half of the original magic power. It was like a talisman treasure. The talisman treasure made by a core forging stage cultivator could only be given to a blood condensation stage disciple to save his life. For a core forging stage cultivator, the talisman treasure was extremely useless. This also caused the value of the intentional battle pill to be greatly reduced. It was even in danger of being lost in the alchemy world. Even Lu Ping had never tried refining a magic power into an intentional battle pill. Just as Lu Ping was carefully observing the 3 flames that rushed towards the Crystal Palace cultivator with Liao Ruanjia, 2 golden rays of light suddenly appeared in the sky outside the valley. Sound transmission sword, not good. Tianqin Laozu's voice sounded in Lu Ping's ears. When Lu Ping turned around, Tianqin Laozu was no longer beside him. Chapter 550. 2 sound-transmitting magic swords instantly reached the hands of the leading cultivator of the Crystal Palace and the leading cultivator of the Lu family, Lu Runjian. Although the 2 were fighting, they did not dare to neglect the contents of the jade slips. They both used their spiritual senses to check the contents. Then, their expressions changed greatly. The leading cultivator from Water Crystal Palace could no longer care about the Lu clan cultivator who was already on the verge of death. He hurriedly shouted, "All junior brothers, gather here quickly." Lu Runjian also hurriedly said, "Retreat, quickly retreat to me." However, as soon as the 2 of them shouted, one of the Lu family cultivators was besieged by 2 cultivators from Water Crystal Palace, leaving him on the verge of death. Hearing the shout from the Water Crystal Palace cultivator, one of the cultivators from Water Crystal Palace swiftly rushed forward. As for the other cultivator, he paused for a moment. Next, he raised the magic treasure in his hand, wanting to finish off the Lu family cultivator first. However, Just as the cultivator raised the magic weapon in his hand, his eyes were suddenly filled with a golden flame. The cultivator of the Crystal Palace seemed to hear the exclamation of his fellow cultivator behind him. However, he only felt a sudden heat in his body, and then he lost consciousness. The cultivator of the Crystal Palace was gathering his fellow disciples. A golden light flashed in the corner of his eyes. Years of life and death experience gave him a keen premonition. He subconsciously opened his mouth to warn the direction where the light disappeared. However, what appeared in the eyes of the cultivator was a golden flame that disappeared in a flash. A fellow disciple who was swallowed by the flame was turned into flying ash. What a domineering flame! A look of fear flashed across the cultivator's face. After the death of his fellow disciple, the unconscious Lu family cultivator also turned into flying ash. The two storage magic weapons fell into a flashing humanoid flame. Then the humanoid flame seemed to be extinguished and disappeared in front of everyone. However, before everyone could blink, the humanoid flame that had disappeared suddenly appeared in front of another injured Lu family cultivator. There was a look of despair on the Lu family cultivator's face. However, in the face of death, he unleashed an unprecedented display of ferocity. He hurled out a high-grade pill furnace from his storage artifact, which smashed towards the humanoid golden flame. Furnace explosion? The humanoid golden flame let out a disdainful chuckle, but it did not slow down at all. Its left hand shot out a clump of golden flames, which flew towards the Lu family cultivator. At the same time, its right hand shot out to catch the pill furnace that was hurtling towards it. There were actually two explanations for furnace explosion. One was when the alchemist was in the process of alchemy. Due to various reasons such as insufficient alchemy skills, the elixir in the pill furnace collapsed in the furnace. The other was to directly explode the pill furnace and use the power of the explosion to kill the enemy and protect oneself. This was a desperate move of the alchemist on the verge of death. It should not be used lightly unless it was a last resort. The golden humanoid flame was naturally Lyra Laozu, who was possessed by flames. When Lyra Laozu saw the high-grade pill furnace smashing toward her, she immediately changed her mind. Since the Lu family cultivator wanted to destroy this high-grade pill furnace, she might as well give it to Lyra Laozu herself. She flicked out a flame and melted the seriously injured cultivator of Lu family, who had hurriedly summoned a defensive magical artifact. Before he had the time to prop up his protective upstanding chi, the golden flame suddenly exploded and engulfed his whole body. And the alchemy furnace in Lyra Laozu's right hand was surrounded by a small firebird, as if it was dancing. Just a moment later, the alchemy furnace that was originally on the verge of collapse was restored by Lyra Laozu's hands again, but there was a not very obvious crack on the mouth of the alchemy furnace. After going back, she would ask a forging master to repair it, and the whole thing would be a brand new high-grade alchemy furnace. When Lyra Laozu changed her mind, the flickering figure suddenly stopped. The Crystal Palace and the Lu family cultivators seized the opportunity to gather together. The Crystal Palace cultivators quickly gathered the remaining junior brothers together to form a Dao soldier formation. The leading cultivator said in a low voice, "Everyone, guard your positions. Once the Dharma Realm cultivator sneaks into the secret island attacks, we only need to hold him back. When the other Dharma Realm uncles arrive, it will be the time of that person's death." After Lu Runjian gathered the only 5 or 6 family cultivators, he did not wait for reinforcements like the Crystal Palace, but quickly fled out of the valley. Their strength was not as good as that of the Crystal Palace, and it was unknown whether they could escape the strong attack of the mysterious flame cultivator. Therefore, they had to try their best to meet with the Lu family's Dharma Laozu before the flame cultivator caught up. However, to everyone's surprise, the cultivator with golden flames never appeared in the valley again. He also did not go after the cultivators from the Lu family. At the edge of the secret island, Lu Ping followed Lyra Laozu out of the island. "Uncle, we sneaked into this secret island, and those Dharma Realm cultivators already knew. Why did the cultivators of the Crystal Palace and the Lu family only remind their disciples now?" Lu Ping asked with some puzzlement. Lyra Laozu's speed was not slow at all, and at the same time, her divine thoughts were carefully searching in all directions. She said, "Before the battle, There was no time to inform them. Now that the swords have appeared, it means that the Dharma realm cultivators of each sect have already decided the winner or the loser, or reached some kind of compromise. If I don't take action now, once the disciples of each sect meet with the Dharma realm cultivators, I will no longer have a chance to take action, and may even be surrounded by the cultivators of each sect. Unfortunately, in the end, we still did not figure out the purpose of these cultivators in this secret island. Lyra Laozu waved the 3 storage instruments in her hand and said, "Anyway, these are the storage instruments of 3 late core forging realm cultivators. The Crystal Palace and the Lu family are both rich. I believe that the harvest will not be small. Maybe from these 3 storage instruments, we can find some clues about the purpose of the 4 sects entering the secret island." In a small island outside the secret island, Lyra Laozu and Lu Ping sat on the ground, looking at the treasures that were found in the storage instruments of the 3 late core forging realm cultivators. They could not help but sigh that the cultivators from the East Sea and the Central Mainland were really rich. "Nephew Lu, if it wasn't for your map, we would not have come here. You can take half of these things." Although there were not many things that Lyra Laozu could use, but for a core forging realm cultivator, it was a very rich treasure. Lu Ping shook his head and said, "If we found some treasures on the island, or some heavenly treasures, even if Uncle didn't ask, this disciple would still ask for it. But these people died in the hands of Uncle, this disciple didn't do much. These things are Uncle's spoils of war, this disciple can't take them." Lyra Laozu chuckled and said, "You really have the same bad temper as Liu Tianling." Lyra Laozu waved her hand and picked up a high-grade Earth Step Spirit item, 2 middle-grade Earth Step Spirit items and a low-grade Earth Step Spirit item. Then she picked up more than 403,000-year spirit grass and 2,000-year spirit grass. She also picked up 7 or 8 top-grade spirit stones. Then she picked up a few more things and pointed to the remaining things and said, "The rest is for you." Lu Ping smiled and said, "I don't dare to refuse an elder's gift, this disciple won't be polite." Lu Ping waved his hand and picked up the 2 mystic-level spirit items on the ground. In addition, there were 4 strange things, and the rest of the spirit grass and 500 or 600 top-grade spirit stones. The mystic-level spirit items were fine, but the 4 strange things were of some use to Lu Ping. Because the 7 Treasure Thunder Gourd received Yuan's great divine lightning spell, the 7 Treasure Thunder Gourd gained a broken and illusory rune. Lu Ping also had some ideas about condensing the 7 Treasure Thunder Gourd into a spiritual treasure and upgrading it to a spiritual treasure. So Lu Ping must prepare some heaven and earth oddities, because a large part of the 7 Treasure Thunder Gourd's power came from smelting heaven and earth oddities of various attributes. 500 or 600 top-grade spirit stones could be regarded as charcoal in snowy weather, but what made Lu Ping and Lyra Laozu happy was the information about the Lu clan's inherited alchemy techniques collected from the 2 Lu clan cultivators. Although this content was only superficial, but Lu Ping and Lyra Laozu were both experts in alchemy, so they could learn from it. This was a supplement and improvement for the 2's alchemy techniques. Not to mention, these jade slips also recorded some of the Central Earth Lu clan's spirit grass growth habits, cultivation methods, and other aspects, which were quite unique. Unfortunately, the 2 of them did not find any clues about the secret island in these jade slips. Lu Ping thought for a moment and said, "That Peng Shiyuan got the map from the Lu clan, so the Lu clan must have known the location of this secret island in advance." After Peng Shiyuan got the map, he came to the North Sea from the East Sea, so he must first inform the Crystal Palace of the contents of the map. The Fallen Archipelago has been opened several times. Although the Crystal Palace didn't find the secret island, they must have a good understanding of the distribution of the islands, so it was not difficult for the Crystal Palace to quickly find this place. As for Dao Xian of Xianling sect, I'm afraid he just came with the Crystal Palace. Only the Yuan clan, I don't know whether they just got the news about the secret island or they knew it long ago. Tianqin Laozu carefully looked at the map for a moment, and then said, although the place where the 4 sects fought was in the center of the secret island, it was actually not in the position indicated on the map. It was still hundreds of feet away. Lu Ping took the map and looked at it in surprise. He found that it was as Tianqin Laozu said. Lu Ping's mind suddenly became active, and he said, There are 2 practitioners at the late core forging realm in the Lu clan, and 1 in the Crystal Palace. A total of 3 practitioners who were likely to enter the Dharma manifestation stage in the future died in the hands of Uncle Master. But after half a day, there was no movement in the secret island. Could it be that the 2 jade slips were not only to remind the disciples to be on guard against Uncle Master, but also to summon people to enter the center of the island? Yes or no, we'll know after we go and see. Tianqin Laozu got up and walked out of the cave. Lu Ping quickly got up and followed. Chapter 551. What did the death of a late core forging adept mean to a sect? In Zhenling, Zhenren Shen was ambushed by the demon clan and was seriously injured. His cultivation almost collapsed. Starting from Tianlu Laozu, all the alchemists in Zhenling gathered at the Elixir Pavilion to discuss the possibility of curing Zhenren Shen. After the death of Li Shenyin, Zhenling almost sent out all the sects. If it weren't for Aou who saw the opportunity early and hid in the deep-sea demon region, and Xianling sect who was seriously injured because of Dao Shi Laozu, who knew how much blood would have been stirred up in the North Sea cultivation world by Zhenling. Then what about the death of 3 late core forging adepts? The death of 3 late core forging adepts, especially the death of 3 adepts who had a 7th grade golden core and had broken through to the Dharma stage, was a very serious loss even for famous sects like the Crystal Palace and the Yuan family. Moreover, for a sect like the Crystal Palace, which was extremely powerful in the overseas cultivation world, after their disciple was killed, the Dharma adepts in the sect actually did not care about it. How could this not make Tianqin Laozu and Lu Ping feel strange? Unless there were more important things that made the Crystal Palace too busy to take revenge for their disciple. Lu Ping followed behind Tianqin Laozu and said worriedly, "Uncle, if the 4 sects really reached a compromise with each other, won't we be entering the wolf's den if we go now?" Tianqin Laozu said without looking back, "Let's forget about the others, but Xianling sect is also in it." Lu Ping did not say anything but followed behind Tianqin Laozu and sneaked into the secret island again. What could attract the attention of the Crystal Palace, the Yuan family and the Lu family, was naturally a famous treasure in the entire cultivation world. This time, with the help of the Crystal Palace, Xianling sect could actually participate in the game of the famous sects in the cultivation world. This in itself was a huge promotion of the sect's status, ahead of Zhenling. Based on Xianling sect's recent activities in the North Sea, with the support of ancestor Yuan Guang, 2 more Xianling sect disciples had formed their 7th grade gold core after Feng Shutao. Furthermore, according to Zhenling sect's information, 4 to 5 other disciples had also stepped into the 9th layer core forging realm and were preparing to form high-grade gold cores. Although Zhenling sect had put in a lot of effort, it could not compare to Xianling sect, who ate the leftovers from the Crystal Palace. Therefore, Tianqin Laozu must try his best to participate in the secret of the secret island. Even if in the end, he would not get anything, he must find out what secrets were hidden on the secret island. When the 2 carefully returned to the place where the Dharma adepts of the various sects fought with Laozu, the place had long become silent except for the mess. The Dharma adepts who had fought previously had long disappeared. Lu Ping followed behind Tianqin Laozu and could not help but worry, "Uncle Master, do we still move forward according to the location marked on the map?" Tianqin Laozu did not directly answer Lu Ping's question, but instead asked, "Do you now feel that the concentration of the poisonous fog around us is increasing?" Lu Ping was stunned when he heard this. He carefully used his divine thoughts to explore around him and found that the concentration of the poisonous fog around him had increased again after entering the secret island. Lu Ping's face was a little ugly, and he said, "Uncle Master, is it the time for the fallen islands to close?" Tianqin Laozu was also a little hesitant, and said, "If we go forward a little more, we will know whether it is or not." Lu Ping followed Tianqin Laozu and sneaked forward for dozens of feet again. As soon as Lu Ping released his divine thoughts, his face showed a painful expression, and the 1,000 poison meteorite energy gang around his body suddenly shone with a golden light, and then the pain was relieved. At this time, Tianqin Laozu's face was also a little ugly. Obviously, when his divine thoughts overflowed, he also suffered a loss, but there was a trace of joy in his eyes. Lu Ping took a breath of cold air and said, "Uncle Master, the concentration of the poisonous fog around us has indeed increased, and the increase is extremely intense. My divine thoughts were almost corroded when I just came out of my body." The Sky Zither ancestor laughed. "This also means that it is not time for the fallen archipelago to close. Instead, it is because this place has naturally gathered an extremely dense poisonous mist. Before the fallen archipelago closes, although the density of the poisonous mist has increased, it has not increased by such a terrifying amount. Otherwise, I'm afraid that not many cultivators have been able to escape." As the two continued to move forward, the corrosion of the surrounding poisonous fog on Lu Ping's protective aura became more and more serious. Lu Ping's body's true essence was like flowing water, pouring from his blood into the protective aura. If it weren't for the fact that Lu Ping had merged with the blood of 12 kinds of poisonous beasts in the Fallen Islands, which pushed Lu Ping's cultivation all the way to the peak of the 5th level of the core forging realm, and the accumulation of the true essence in his body was once again improved, and there was Laozu, who was at the Dharma manifestation stage. Next to him, Lu Ping had already left the central area of the secret island. After a while, Tianqin Laozu suddenly turned his head and said, "My divine thoughts can't go out of my body. The poisonous fog around us is extremely dense. Now we can only rely on our eyes to observe the situation around us." Lu Ping nodded and did not speak. The two of them had already come this far. If they turned back, all their previous efforts would be in vain. Both of them were cultivators with a strong sense of purpose, and there was no reason for them to turn back midway. After walking for a distance of a few dozen feet, the intensity of the poisonous fog seemed to have reached its limit, and then it stopped increasing. However, the myriad poison meteorite gang around Lu Ping's body became brighter and brighter, causing Tianqin Laozu to look back at Lu Ping's aura frequently. The reason for this was because the dense poisonous fog forced Lu Ping to inject a large amount of true essence into the aura, which made the myriad poison meteorite gang shine even brighter. In addition, when the myriad meteoric poison body was resisting the invasion of the poisonous gas, it was also refining the toxins in the poisonous gas into the myriad meteoric poison body at an extremely slow speed, causing the myriad meteoric poison body to strengthen at an extremely slow speed. This also caused the myriad meteoric poison body to always be at its peak, without any signs of weakening. Previously, when they were in the periphery of the fallen Great Archipelago, Lu Ping's myriad poison meteorite gang had already reached its limit in refining the poisonous fog. Now that they encountered a poisonous fog that was even more toxic, and Lu Ping's own cultivation had also improved significantly, he once again began to absorb and refine the poisonous fog. Lu Ping's heart skipped a beat. Previously, Lu Ping thought that the myriad poison meteorite gang had stopped refining the poisonous fog because of his cultivation. Now, it seemed that the myriad poison meteorite gang had adapted to the poisonous fog in the periphery. Now that it encountered a poisonous fog that was even more toxic, the myriad poison meteorite gang began to refine and advance again. Since this was the case, could it be that the Black Prison Poison Fire and Myriad Wonder Dew also stopped advancing because of this situation? As Lu Ping thought of this, his heart could not help but beat fiercely. Lu Ping had seen the power of the Black Prison Poison Fire before. It melted the protective aura of a core forging stage cultivator. Although the cultivator's cultivation and state at that time were at the bottom of the core forging stage, he was still a core forging stage cultivator. At the very least, the Black Prison Poison Fire from before did not have this kind of power. If it evolved again in this environment of dense poisonous fog, would its power become even more tyrannical? However, these were all minor details. What was more important was that in Lu Ping's Golden House, there was a large portion of Myriad Wonder Dew hidden in the Myriad Poison Meteorite liquid. If it could be refined again and grow. However, this kind of excitement could only be suppressed in his heart. Not to mention the environment here, once the Black Prison Poison Fire and Myriad Wonder Dew were taken out, it would definitely cause a violent turbulence in the poisonous fog, which would then attract the attention of the Dharma manifestation stage cultivators who had already entered the thick poisonous fog. Of course, Lu Ping himself was not stupid enough to expose his trump card in front of others, even if it was a senior martial uncle of his sect. After all, it was the Myriad Wonder Dew. As they walked closer to the center of the island marked on the map, although the density of the poisonous fog had reached its limit, their vision became more and more blurred. Lu Ping and Tianqin Laozu both tried their best to use the magical powers in their eyes to look into the depths of the poisonous fog, trying to find some clues. Just as Tianqin Laozu was about to step forward, Lu Ping suddenly grabbed Tianqin Laozu's sleeve. Tianqin Laozu was very alert, her footsteps suddenly stopped in mid-air. When she looked back at Lu Ping, she saw Lu Ping pointing to his feet. Tianqin Laozu immediately understood. Without asking the reason, she followed behind Lu Ping and tiptoed to the center of the island. After a while, the blue light in Lu Ping's eyes disappeared, and he breathed a sigh of relief and said, "That was close. I didn't expect that these cultivators who entered the secret plane before actually arranged an early warning array on the ground, with the help of the poisonous fog to corrode the divine sense and block the vision. We almost fell into their trap." Tianqin Laozu smiled and said, "This shows that the other party can't detect the abnormal situation within a certain distance, and can only rely on the warning power of the formation. However, the three pure true pupils really has a natural advantage in seeing through the illusion of the formation. I have also looked under my feet before, but I didn't notice the early warning array under my feet." Lu Ping smiled and said, "You flatter me, junior martial uncle. If we're talking about seeing further in this poisonous fog, it's all thanks to junior martial uncle's eye technique. That's the only way we'll be able to detect and avoid enemies." After changing direction again to avoid a few early warning arrays under their feet, Tianqin Laozu's footsteps suddenly stopped. Lu Ping's expression behind him also suddenly became dignified. Although he couldn't see what Tianqin Laozu found, he also knew that at this time Tianqin Laozu was afraid that he had already discovered the other cultivators who entered the secret realm. Tianqin Laozu slowly took Lu Ping around the center of the secret plane, just like Lu Ping took Tianqin Laozu to bypass the early warning array under their feet. At this moment, Tianqin Laozu stopped again, and at the same time seemed to listen to something. When Lu Ping saw this, he also used a clairaudient technique, and a slight voice came from about 100 feet in front of him. "Brother Lu, do you know who the Dharma adept who killed your family's disciple is?" Chapter 552. Brother Lu, do you know who the Dharma adept who killed a disciple of your clan is? Lu Ping could tell that the person who asked the question was the mid-Dharma adept of the Yuan clan, Yuan Luo, whom Lu Ping had met earlier. A deep voice rang out, and there was a hint of anger and murderous intent in it. He said, "Based on the information I received from my cousin Runjian, the person who came should only be an early Dharma adept. She uses a rather powerful golden flame that can turn her entire body into flames. However, it seems that this person is a female adept." Yuan Luo's voice rang out again, and she said, "To be able to kill a late core forging adept from the Crystal Palace with a single blow, this level of ability is not considered weak among early Dharma adepts. Brother Lu's clan is a well-known alchemy clan in the world of practitioners, and you have seen countless types of flame spells. I wonder if Brother Lu has any insight into this golden flame." As if pondering something, after a while, the deep voice rang out again, saying, "Based on the power of that person's flame spell, a Dharma adept would naturally not be able to use an earth-level spiritual fire. As such, among the heaven-level spiritual fires, there are not many types that are golden in color. There is one type of low-grade heaven-level golden flame, and another type is the golden crow fire. Among the mid-grade heaven-level spiritual fires, there is a fire seed called the sun-treasured flame, which is also golden in color." As Lu Ping listened to the Lu clan Dharma adept in front of him introduce the various types of golden flames, he also secretly observed Lyra Laozu's expression. Lu Ping himself was very curious about Lyra Laozu's golden flame spell. However, Tianqin Laozu's expression did not change in the slightest, as if the conversation between the two mid-Dharma adepts in front of him had nothing to do with him. Actually, there's another type of heaven and earth spirit fire called the seven-colored flame. The Lu family's Dharma idol, Laozu, thought for a moment and continued, "In the cultivation world, legend has it that there's an extremely special cultivation method that can use heaven and earth spirit fire to artificially synthesize new and higher grade heaven and earth spirit fire. This kind of flame starts from a profound grade spirit fire and chooses a type of spirit fire as its seed. Then, as one's cultivation increases, new and higher grade spirit fires will gradually be added to increase the grade of the spirit fire seed that cultivators smelt. This kind of flame will gradually change color as its grade increases. When a cultivator advances to the Dharma stage, the color of the flame will change 7 times. Yuan Luo said in surprise, "I've heard of the 7-colored flame, but I didn't know that there was such a saying." It seems that the Lu family, the most famous alchemy family in the Central Plains, indeed has an understanding of heaven and earth spirit fire that is difficult for ordinary people to surpass. The Lu family's Dharma Laozu hesitated for a moment before saying, "The advancement of the 7-colored flame is also different. After smelting the 7th type of flame, if a 7th-grade golden elixir is formed, the color of the flame will eventually become purple. Also, according to the quality of the golden elixir, the color of the flame will vary." At this time, Yuan Luo had also heard the meaning behind Laozu's words and could not help but ask in a low voice, "Golden yellow flames and not purple flames? It seems that this cultivator's golden elixir is probably above the 7th grade?" The Lu family's Laozu nodded and said, "That's right. In the Lu family's ancient records, if a cultivator's golden elixir has just reached the 8th grade, then the color of the flame will most likely be golden yellow, or bright red like blood. Then what if the cultivator is finally able to smelt a high-grade heaven-level spirit fire?" Yuan Luo looked a little curious and asked in a probing manner, "I don't know about this either. At least in the world of practice, I've never heard of any cultivator who can finally condense a high-grade heaven-level spirit fire." The Lu family's Laozu said with some regret. To kill a late core forging adept from the Crystal Palace with one blow, it seems that an early Dharma adept of this level must have condensed a golden elixir above the 8th grade before advancing to the Dharma stage. Yuan Luo's face was a little solemn. An adept who had condensed an 8th-grade golden elixir and advanced to the early Dharma stage was not comparable to an adept who had condensed a 7th-grade golden elixir and advanced to the Dharma stage. After thinking for a while, she said, "If that's the case, then the heaven and earth spirit fire that this cultivator smelted is most likely the precious sun flame or this 7-colored flame." "That should be the case, but I think the possibility of it being the 7-colored flame is higher." The Lu family's Laozu hesitated for a while. Seeing that Yuan Luo's face was full of confusion, he said, "To transform one's body into flames, this is a level of power that can only be achieved by mastering the control of flames to an extremely high level. The precious sun flame is explosive in nature, and the cultivator herself is a woman. For the precious sun flame, it is somewhat inappropriate. What's more, very few practitioners in the early Dharma stage can reach the level of transforming their body into flames. At least after the practitioner's cultivation has reached the middle Dharma stage, the inner yuan and physical strength of the body have reached a whole new level, then it is possible to withstand the possible side effects of transforming one's body into flames. But the 7-colored flame is different. This kind of flame is cultivated by the practitioner from the profound stage, and it is smelted step by step. The practitioner's control of the fire has already reached a level where they can do whatever they want. In addition, the 7-colored flame is relatively mild, and it is an excellent flame for refining elixirs and medicines. Therefore, if the Dharma stage female practitioner is really in the early Dharma stage, then this female practitioner is very likely to use the 7-colored flame, and this female practitioner is also very likely to be an alchemist. Brother Lu is really knowledgeable. Luo is very impressed. You are indeed one of the 3 most outstanding alchemist grandmasters of the Lu family. It's a pity that this trip to the secret island involved the Crystal Palace and a small North Sea sect called Xianling sect. Some of the places were taken away for no reason, and they also occupied several entrances to the secret island where the treasures of heaven and earth are relatively dense. Yuan Luo seemed to be a little unsatisfied and continued, "It's a pity that the practitioners of your family were attacked by the Crystal Palace and several people died. Otherwise, in the past, only the practitioners of the core forging stage of your family and my family entered the secret island, and there were enough treasures of heaven and earth for you and my family to collect. Now I'm afraid that the treasures in the secret island are a little stretched." Laozu of the Lu family snorted coldly and said, The Crystal Palace has always been domineering overseas. Do they really think that our Lu family is easy to bully? It's fine overseas, our Lu family thinks that we can't beat them, but the Crystal Palace has taken advantage of the chaos of the central mainland these years and actually began to infiltrate into the central mainland. Our Lu family will always make the Crystal Palace pay the price. Yuan Luo laughed and said, after all, the central mainland is our world. If the Crystal Palace wants to get a piece of the cake, it will inevitably provoke the whole cultivation world of the central mainland against the common enemy. After all, until now, the 5 giant sects of the central mainland have not expressed their position on the matter of the Crystal Palace. However, this time Tianyu sect and the emerging Xiaoyaro sect of the East Sea have formed an alliance. They also need the Xiaoyaro sect to contain the Crystal Palace and delay their pace of entering the central mainland. After all, when the Crystal Palace enters the central mainland, the first to bear the brunt is the Tianyu sect, which is established on the coastal coast. When Tianqin Laozu heard this, he suddenly turned and walked to the other side. Lu Ping did not dare to neglect and hurriedly followed. Walking to a place where there was no one, Tianqin Laozu suddenly said, since the 2 people said that the secret place is full of treasures, but these 2 Dharma adepts can only stay outside the secret place, I am afraid that there are some restrictions on entering the secret place. Only core forging adepts can enter. Lu Ping understood the meaning behind his words, but he was indeed eager to enter this secret place, so he volunteered and said, obviously, there is more than one entrance to this secret place. Otherwise, there wouldn't be only 2 people here just now. This disciple is actually quite interested in the secret place that the 2 of them mentioned. I want to go in and explore it. Tianqin Laozu looked back at Lu Ping and said, Nephew Lu, I really hope that you can go in. Even if you do not gain anything in it, as long as you destroy the plan of the Xianling sect adepts who enter the secret place, it will be fine. But this time, the adepts who enter the secret place are obviously at the late core forging stage. Even if your strength is not weaker than an ordinary 7th level core forging stage cultivator, but if you are alone, you will be in danger of dying at any time. Lu Ping smiled and said, of course I know. But in my opinion, the disciples of the 4 sects don't know each other very well. I also have a treasure that can conceal my cultivation base, so it's hard for others to see through my cultivation base. Even if someone sees me, they'll think I'm just a disciple from the other 3 sects. So, I don't think I'll be in much danger. Tianqin Laozu seemed to suddenly think of something and opened the void. After rummaging through the storage space for a moment, he handed a blue mask to Lu Ping and said, this mask is called face changing, and it can change your appearance at any time. Unfortunately, it does not have much effect on the detection of divine will. You can take it and use it, as long as no one deliberately checks your details, so your appearance will not be known. Lu Ping took the mask and could not put it down. He originally had a mask in his hand that was given to him by Zhenren Cao, but with the growth of his cultivation and the improvement of the level of the adepts he faced, that mask had long been useless. However, the mask that Tianqin Laozu gave him now was much more advanced than the previous one. The 2 cooperated with each other, and finally with the map as the center, they circled around to a place where no Dharma adepts were paying attention. Tianqin Laozu and Lu Ping carefully walked forward, but Tianqin Laozu's figure suddenly stopped, as if he had hit something, and he actually took 2 steps back, which shocked Lu Ping who was behind him. Tianqin Laozu, who had taken 2 steps back, took 2 steps forward and reached forward, as if he had touched some kind of barrier. The 2 of them, whether Lu Ping used the 3 pure eyes or overflowed divine will, could not find this barrier. Tianqin Laozu turned to Lu Ping and said, it seems that this is the boundary between the secret island and the secret place. This invisible barrier even blocks me outside. You can go forward and try to see if you can pass through this barrier. Lu Ping put the mask on his face, and Lu Ping immediately turned into a dark-faced, dignified cultivator, and walked forward. In Tianqin Laozu's view, Lu Ping seemed to have hit into the void and suddenly disappeared in front of him. Tianqin Laozu's face changed for a moment, and finally sighed. From the place where Lu Ping disappeared, he set up some traps for early warning, and then found a more secret place nearby, and began to quietly wait for the return of Lu Ping. Lu Ping, who had crashed into the secret plane, felt his feet stagger, and it was not easy to stop his body. Looking up, Lu Ping's eyes suddenly widened, and his face was full of disbelief. Chapter 553. Lu Ping felt as if he had entered a fairyland. Just as Lu Ping entered the secret area, the dense spiritual energy of heaven and earth enveloped Lu Ping's entire body. The dense spiritual energy in the distance was like bees smelling the fragrance of flowers, rushing towards Lu Ping. Lu Ping hurriedly released his divine sense to check the situation around him. Then, a golden light shone from his chest and reflected on the ground in front of Lu Ping. Samling, Luanyu, Lu Qina, Lu Dagui, and the ignorant Dabao had just come out. Lu Ping had already sat on the ground and started a deep level of cultivation. Lu Ping's body was like a bottomless abyss at this moment. Lu Ping's body was like a bottomless abyss, all the spiritual energy in the surroundings was absorbed by him. Samling had just broken through to the second stage of the core forging realm, Luanyu had just advanced to the middle stage of the core forging realm, Lu Qina was still consolidating her foundation after swallowing the heart-forging pill, and Lu Dagui's cultivation was far from the point of advancement. Therefore, after these people were released from the Golden House by Lu Ping, although the dense spiritual energy of heaven and earth made everyone have a desire to cultivate, most of them had just advanced their cultivation, so it was impossible for them to make much progress in a short period of time. Moreover, these people were clear about the reason why Lu Ping released them. Luanyu said in a low voice, "Everyone, be on guard. If you encounter a strong enemy, warn them and retreat." The cultivators who entered this secret area are the elite late-stage core forging realm cultivators of the Central Mainland and the Crystal Palace. Even if they encounter a cultivator of the Transcendence realm, they can still put up a fight. Other than Lu Ping, none of us are a match for these people. Therefore, our task is not to stop the enemy, but to warn them. As soon as Luanyu's voice fell, the demons were about to disperse when they heard a bang. When everyone turned to look, they saw that Dabao had fallen to the ground as if he was drunk. Just as he was about to stand up, his head tilted back and he actually fell asleep on the ground. Luanyu walked 2 steps forward, walked in front of Dabao, and bent down to check. Her face revealed an expression of as expected, and she said, "This guy's opportunity has come. It's time for him to break through to the core forging realm." Luanyu took out a yellow bead from her storage magic tool and stuffed it into Dabao's mouth. This earth yellow bead was an earth elemental golden core Lu Ping obtained from the 2 Lu clan cultivators he killed by old ancestor Tian Qin. Although there weren't many earth elemental cultivators and cultivation methods in the overseas cultivation world, there were many of them in the Middle Earth. Not to mention, it was only a first-layer core forging realm monster's golden core. The Lu clan cultivators who owned the golden core might have forgotten about the existence of such a golden core in their interspatial mystic instrument. When Lu Ping found the golden core, it was placed together with hundreds of high-grade spirit stones. Lu Ping handed the golden core to Luanyu for safekeeping because he hoped that in the House of Gold, there would be someone who could urge Dabao to work hard in his cultivation. Dabao was originally a low-level demonic beast, the spirit-seeking mouse. Normally, it would only be a demonic beast in the blood-refining realm. However, ever since it started following Lu Ping, with Lu Ping's full support, Dabao managed to advance to the peak of the blood condensation realm in one go with all kinds of miraculous pills. Dabao was lazy and loved to take shortcuts. However, advancing to the core forging realm was not something that could be taken easily. Due to Dabao's low aptitude, his cultivation stagnated for several years and he became the weakest demonic beast in Lu Ping's possession. Because of this, Lu Ping handed the golden core to Luanyu and asked him to supervise Dabao's cultivation in the House of Gold, so that Dabao could advance to the core forging realm as soon as possible. However, no one expected that right after Lu Ping found a core forging realm demonic beast with an earth attribute tiger bloodline, Dabao would immediately obtain the opportunity to advance to the core forging realm. It had to be said that Dabao was indeed a lucky general. When Dabao was ready for everything, the east wind also arrived. Just like that, the man and the mouse sat on the ground and circulated their cultivation techniques with all their might, absorbing the heaven and earth spiritual chi into their bodies and refining it into their bloodlines. Then, They condensed it into drops of bloodline essence and gathered it into the space in the heart core. Lu Ping didn't expect that the opportunity to advance to the core forging realm would come so quickly. Thanks to the solid foundation that Lu Ping had laid over the years, Lu Ping's cultivation progress was not as rapid as before, but it was still steady. However, in the 2 months since he entered the Fallen Archipelago, Lu Ping had swallowed and refined the blood of 12 poisonous beasts, strengthening his own bloodline to the extreme. Every time Lu Ping refined a poisonous beast's bloodline, Lu Ping's cultivation foundation would become more solid, and his cultivation would also improve steadily. After all the 12 bloodlines were swallowed and assimilated by Lu Ping's own bloodline, Lu Ping's cultivation progress, which he thought would take many years to achieve, actually advanced to the core forging realm in just 2 months. He was only one step away from breaking through to the core forging realm. The second thing Lu Ping didn't expect was that in a dangerous place like the Fallen Archipelago where poisonous fog gathered, even the Avatar Great Ancestors had to be extra careful. Yet, a secret place that only core forging realm cultivators could enter appeared out of nowhere. Not only that, but it was also like a fairyland, without any poisonous fog or poisonous beasts roaming around. As soon as Lu Ping stepped into this place, he could clearly feel that the heaven and earth aura in this secret place was even thicker than that of Zhenling's Qianling Mountain. Moreover, it didn't seem to be enough to describe the density of the heaven and earth aura here. This kind of thick heaven and earth aura seemed to have its own spirituality. It could distinguish the cultivation realm of the cultivators who entered this place. The moment Lu Ping stepped into the secret place, it could sense that Lu Ping was the person who needed it the most, so it all rushed towards Lu Ping. Giant spiritual vein, this thought flashed in Lu Ping's mind, but it was too late to think about it. The North Sea Wave listening scripture in Lu Ping's body was stimulated by the dense spiritual energy of heaven and earth. Immediately, the North Sea Wave listening scripture began to circulate in his body like a madman. The massive amount of spiritual energy was refined into his bloodline, and his true essence carried the essence of his bloodline and rushed into Lu Ping's heart space. Lu Ping's huge golden core suddenly spun wildly in the core space. Streams of blood essence power gathered in the golden core, forming a group of blue clouds that were attached to the surface of the golden core. They were swallowed and spat out by the 5 strange 4-legged dragons attached to the surface of the golden core. In the process of these clouds being swallowed and spat out by the 5 strange dragons, a trace of Lu Ping's divine sense was also attached to these clouds through the 5 strange dragons. When these clouds finally gathered on the surface of the golden core, the blue clouds churned, and Lu Ping's golden core suddenly swelled. The 6th strange dragon wriggled out of the blue clouds and let out an invisible long hiss towards the sky. The other 5 strange dragons also seemed to be celebrating the appearance of the 6th strange dragon. They all raised their heads towards the sky and let out a long hiss at the same time. An invisible bloodline pressure was emitted from Lu Ping's body. Within a radius of nearly 10 kilometers, whether it was a human or a demon, as long as it was a core forging cultivator, they would willingly bow down and worship him. Luan Yu was hiding in a secret place a few kilometers away from Lu Ping. His eyes were fixed on the direction in which Lu Ping was cultivating. His eyes flashed with confusion, and he muttered, "What kind of freak is this guy?" According to the records of the Wood Luan clan, perhaps only when Fa Xiong Laozu's bloodline was purified to the extreme could such a bloodline pressure appear. An ordinary core forging cultivator facing this kind of bloodline pressure simply didn't need to fight at all. They would be innately weakened. But this is also good, this secret plane is full of late core forging realm cultivators. After he made such a scene, I am afraid that many people here have already broken through to the Dharma manifestation stage. I believe that there will be no blind cultivators who dare to come here. In fact, it was just as Luan Yu had expected. Samling looked at the young cultivator who looked to be about the same age as Lu Ping in the distance. He was secretly nervous. Although Samling had not fought with this person before, he had seen this person's strength in the Golden House. Even Lu Ping had almost suffered a great loss at his hands. Samling didn't know if he would be able to escape from this young cultivator after he sent out the warning signal. But at this time, he couldn't care too much. This young man seemed to know this place very well, and he walked directly in the direction where Lu Ping was cultivating. At this time, it was too late for Samling to retreat. Just as Samling was about to warn everyone and fight to the death to stop this person, behind Samling, Lu Ping was cultivating. An incomparable bloodline pressure suddenly erupted in all directions. The bloodline essence condensed in Samling's body was refined by Lu Ping's own bloodline and then given to Samling. Therefore, although Samling's heart felt heavy under this bloodline pressure, he still felt an unparalleled joy in his heart. Although the Yuan family discovered the secret island after the Lu family, the Yuan family's understanding of the secret island was no less than the Lu family's. This time, Yuan Feixiang entered the secret island and seized the opportunity to break through to the 8th level of core forging in one fell swoop. After that, he began to rush in the direction of the secret island according to the records passed down in the family, trying to find an extremely rare spirit fruit. However, just as Yuan Feixiang was about to reach the area where this spirit fruit grew, a soaring bloodline pressure shocked Yuan Feixiang. Was someone breaking through to the Dharma phase? Who had such good luck? Yuan Feixiang knew that this secret island was a place that was helpful for cultivators to break through bottlenecks. Originally, he was a little complacent for being able to break through to the 8th level of core forging so quickly and being the first to wake up from cultivation. He was sure that he would be able to get the most harvest in the secret island. However, he did not expect that the first kind of treasure he intended to collect would have to choose to give up because of this soaring bloodline pressure. After Yuan Feixiang's cultivation broke through to the 8th level of core forging, although his inner confidence was extremely inflated, it seemed that he did not even put a cultivator at the peak of core forging in his eyes. However, he was not arrogant enough to think that he could challenge a cultivator at the Dharma phase, so he wisely chose to give up. Samling looked at Yuan Feixiang, who had just retreated, with a burst of fear in his heart. At this moment, a voice transmission suddenly appeared in Samling's ear. Samling was shocked at first, then happy. After coming out of his hiding place, he flew to the place where Lu Ping had previously cultivated. Chapter 554. The vision of heaven and earth slowly dissipated, and the tsunami of spiritual qi receded. Lu Ping slowly opened his eyes, and there was a hint of fear in his eyes. For an ordinary practitioner to forcefully break through to the next level of cultivation, the vast amount of spiritual qi entering their veins would cause their divine will to be unable to control it. Their training methods would not be able to convert the spiritual qi into inner yuan in time, and their veins would not be able to withstand the impact of the huge amount of spiritual qi. In the end, they would explode and die. If it were not for the fact that Lu Ping practiced the North Sea wave listening technique, which was a rare and wonderful technique in the world of practice, and that Lu Ping's own cultivation base was unimaginably strong, and that his divine will was comparable to that of a peak core forging adept, with such a strong spiritual qi entering his body, Lu Ping's core space would have been broken and his cultivation would have been destroyed. Just as Lu Ping opened his eyes, the blood pressure that had previously been raging in all directions suddenly retreated and was retracted by Lu Ping. As the bloodline suppression dissipated, Lu Ping's divine sense spread out in all directions in the direction where the bloodline suppression had wreaked havoc. When he discovered Samling, Lu Ping's pupils shrank. A divine will that could confuse a peak core forging adept with an early Dharma adept did not hide its presence, but it was not ostentatious and overbearing as it approached Yuan Feixiang, who was gradually approaching Samling. Lu Ping's low-key warning made Yuan Feixiang a little confused, but the blood power that Lu Ping had just released had indeed reached the level that only Laozu, a Dharma adept, could achieve. Yuan Feixiang hesitated for a while, and her face gradually showed a look of dissatisfaction. But in the end, she did not want to become enemies with a potential Dharma adept because of a treasure, so she slowly retreated in another direction. Looking at Samling, who looked relieved but still confused, Lu Ping had an idea. He whispered something, and a wave of inner yuan came out of his throat. Following the guidance of his divine will, it reached Samling's ears in an instant. 1,000-mile voice transmission was an extremely common but extremely difficult secret technique in the world of practice. It could be said to be ordinary, but anyone who had entered the blood refining realm, even the lowest level cultivator, could use this secret technique. However, This secret technique could only be used by a blood-refining realm cultivator's mouth within a radius of 10 feet. Any further and the cultivator would not be able to use his arcane energy to bind his voice into a true essence sound line and transmit it into the cultivator's ears. Using one's own magic power and true essence to wrap the voice that came out of one's mouth into a thin line and transmit it into the ears of the cultivator that one wanted to tell without being noticed by others. This was much more difficult than using a magic tool or magic treasure to kill enemies from a distance. This secret technique could only reach a distance of 10 feet in the hands of a peak blood condensation adept, and a core forging adept could only reach a maximum of 100 feet. However, at this time, Samling and Lu Ping were already more than 6 to 7 miles away. This was already beyond the basic range of 10,000 feet that a Dharma adept could control with 1,000-mile voice transmission. After a while, Luan Yu was the first to return to Lu Ping's side. Seeing Lu Ping standing at the side with a calm expression, she smiled bitterly and said, "There are more and more mysteries about you now. I can't see through you." Lu Ping smiled and changed the topic. "What do you think of this secret place?" Luan Yu's expression turned solemn. "It's very strange. In a place of death like the Great Fallen Archipelago, there is such a place full of vitality. I'm afraid this place is the same as the Great Fallen Archipelago itself. It's a space created by a powerful adept. Moreover, with the density of the spiritual qi here, if you weren't forced to break through to the next level, I'm afraid we wouldn't be able to resist the temptation to cultivate in such an environment." Lu Ping was touched. He had experienced it himself, so he naturally knew that the spiritual qi in such an environment was so dense that it was almost liquid. This was an unimaginable temptation to cultivators. However, his spirit pets and Luan Yu were willing to resist this temptation for his own safety. This was unimaginable. It had to be known that in such an environment, only the moment the spiritual qi in a cultivator's body was stimulated was the most obvious effect on a cultivator's cultivation. If they missed the pulsation of the spiritual qi in their body, even if Samling and the others cultivated at this time, although this environment was equivalent to a giant spirit vein, they would no longer have the ideal effect of falling into a deep state of cultivation. Fortunately, Samling, Luan Yu, and the others did not fall into a deep state of cultivation. Otherwise, the seemingly strong but actually violent spiritual qi in this place would instantly break the restraints on the spiritual qi after entering Samling and the others' bodies. Samling would not be able to control the spiritual qi and would eventually explode. Even with Luan Yu's cultivation at the mid-core forging stage, even if he did not explode from the violent spiritual qi in his body, the spiritual qi in his body would not be able to transform into the blood essence for the gold core to absorb. As a result, his core space would burst and his cultivation would be destroyed. In order to completely absorb the violent heaven and earth spiritual qi in the surroundings, a cultivator's cultivation must be at least at the late stage of core forging. Moreover, they must be an outstanding late-stage core forging cultivator. Only then would they be able to grasp the throbbing qi of true essence and use it to improve their own cultivation. After listening to Lu Ping's explanation, Luan Yu patted his chest with lingering fear and said, "Fortunately, we resisted the temptation to cultivate. Otherwise, we would have been killed without a trace. However, not only were you unscathed in this violent spiritual qi, but you also successfully advanced to the 6th layer of the core forging stage." At this time, Lu Qina, Samling, and Lu Daguay had also returned. When Lu Qina heard Lu Ping's words, she anxiously pointed at Dabao on the ground and said, "Big brother, what should we do with Dabao? Even core forging stage cultivators like us can't withstand such violent heaven and earth spiritual qi, so why is Dabao still able to fall into a deep sleep?" Lu Ping smiled helplessly and said, "I have to say that this guy's luck is really good. We just found a golden core forging stage earth attribute tiger bloodline for him, and he ushered in the opportunity to break through. Although the bloodline that was prepared to be refined wasn't as good as the one in this golden core, it was enough for Dabao's aptitude. However, he didn't get the opportunity to break through. However, if it weren't for the fact that he had fallen into a deep slumber right beside me and had walked out of the range of the spiritual qi around him, he would have most likely exploded into a cloud of blood mist the moment he fell into a deep slumber." Luan Yu added with a smile, the reason why Lu Ping didn't leave Dabao's side and used the 1,000-mile sound transmission technique to summon us back was because he wanted to suppress the violent spiritual qi in the surroundings. Then, he and Dabao could smoothly absorb and refine the spiritual qi and break through. When Lu Qina saw Lu Ping smiling and nodding, she rolled her eyes at Luan Yu and said, "If you ask me, you're obviously very smart, aren't you?" Luan Yu smiled bitterly. She couldn't say a word after being scolded by Lu Qina. At this moment, in the perception of everyone's spiritual qi, the spiritual qi that had been suppressed by Lu Ping suddenly became violent again. Everyone's complexion changed slightly, and they all looked at Dabao, who was lying on the ground and sleeping. Lu Ping's hands formed a seal, and 12 finger-sized true essence balls suddenly appeared in Lu Ping's right hand. Lu Ping raised his right hand above his head, and the 12 true essence balls flew in different directions. Lu Ping softly shouted, "Calm the sea." The 12 true essence balls exploded, and the true essence that burst out turned into silk threads that connected with each other. With Dabao as the center, the surging spiritual qi within a radius of 100 feet was once again suppressed. At the same time, the 12 true essence balls formed a simple array formation that unexpectedly sealed the spiritual qi that had appeared when Dabao was about to break through to the core forging stage and transform. At this time, Dabao had also reached the final moment of advancing to the core forging stage, and his entire body was wrapped in a yellow light. The yellow light gradually shrank, and slowly transformed into a human shape. The yellow light shrank to a height similar to Luan Yu's height, but at this time, Dabao seemed to have some ideas in his mind. The rough outline of his head that was revealed by the yellow light began to look left and right. Everyone could see that Dabao's newly generated divine sense swept over everyone, as if he was hesitating about something. Finally, Dabao's divine sense locked onto Lu Dague's body, and the yellow light rapidly expanded. However, the originally rich light became thinner after Dabao's body expanded. Because Dabao's swollen body expanded too much, the yellow light seemed to be unable to keep up. Like a punctured balloon, the yellow light shrank back to its original size. The yellow light squirmed for a while, and Dabao's newly generated divine sense once again probed. This time, it stared at Lu Ping's body. Among everyone, Lu Ping's body was second only to the tall and sturdy Lu Dague. Unfortunately, Dabao's hope was once again shattered, and the yellow light shrank back into a ball. At this moment, Luan Yu finally couldn't help but advise him. "Dabao, even though we demons can adjust our figures and appearances after taking human form, it's still rather similar to our own innate talent and appearance. Don't blindly imitate the appearance of others and end up becoming neither." The yellow light trembled violently again. This time, Dabao's divine sense stared at Luan Yu's body. The yellow light expanded again, and in the middle of the light was a shining golden pellet. It was Dabao's newly formed gold core. This time, the light finally stabilized, and an earthen yellow humanoid appeared, roughly the same height as Luan Yu. The corner of Luan Yu's mouth twitched. He hadn't expected that his words would attract Dabao's attention, and he began to transform according to his appearance. Dabao seemed to be very satisfied this time, and immediately began to fill his monster transformation into the golden outline. Seeing that Dabao was about to completely transform, suddenly a playful voice shouted in panic, "Squeak, not good, bad, squeak." Originally, Dabao used his Zhen Yuan to transform the outline, but after Lu Ping transformed, this outline suddenly expanded by 2 feet. The original image of a handsome young master suddenly became a small head, smaller eyes, but a huge belly. Because of the increase of 2 feet in circumference, he suddenly became a fat boy of 17 or 18 years old. Lu Ping and the others looked at Dabao, who had successfully transformed into his human form, and laughed out loud. The chubby young man looked like he was about to cry, but the 2 black dots in his eyes were darting around. No one knew what he was thinking. Chapter 555. Dabao stood in the center with a dejected look on his face. Everyone looked at the transformed Dabao and burst into laughter. Dabao was so focused on comparing his appearance with the people around him that he forgot his own weight. Although Dabao was a rat demon, He was gluttonous and lazy. He had already grown to the size of a fat pig. He had a fat body, a short body, a small head, small eyes that flickered in all directions, and 2 thick white front teeth. This was the image of a rich young master that Dabao had transformed into. However, no matter how you looked at it, it felt awkward. Dabao was still carefully examining his transformed body to see if there was any possibility of improvement when he suddenly felt a pain under his nose. He couldn't help but cry out, "Ouch, squeak, be gentle." When everyone looked again, they suddenly realized that Dabao had 2 long and sparse whiskers above his lips, which was very different from his appearance when he was 17 or 18 years old. At this moment, one of the 2 whiskers was firmly grasped in Lu Qin'er's hand. Dabao was in so much pain that he bent over and cried out. He had no choice but to say carefully, "Sister Qin'er, let go, it's going to break, it's going to break." Lu Qin'er said angrily, "Pang Bao, you're so arrogant. You actually fell asleep without a sound and made so many of us stand guard for you. Brother even had to help you suppress the explosive and fluctuating spiritual qi in the surroundings. Mate, brother is usually the most biased and has given you many good things. This time, you have to give us some compensation. Otherwise, Chen PH, you know what will happen." Dabao struggled to break free from Lu Qin'er's hand with great difficulty. He grimaced in pain and said, "Sister Qin'er, I swear to God, I didn't know that the spiritual qi here would be so thick. I was just careless and the magic power in my body began to circulate uncontrollably. When it comes to cultivation pills and whatnot, of course I, Dabao, have the most. But what kind of aptitude do you guys have? 1 day of cultivation for you is equivalent to 3 to 5 days of cultivation for me. You can break through to the core forging stage every time you take 100 bottles of pills, but I have to take 300 to 500 bottles. If Master didn't use so many pills on me, how could I, Dabao, reach the core forging stage?" Lu Qin'er rolled her big eyes and smirked, "Fatty Bao, you're right. However, among the 4 of us, your cultivation is the lowest, but you are the richest. Secondly, you have successfully broken through to the core forging stage, so you have to express your gratitude. Otherwise, hee." Dabao covered the storage bag at his waist vigilantly. He looked around and saw Samling walking toward Dabao with a smirk. Dabao was so scared that he hurried to hide behind Lu Ping. But suddenly, he bumped into a wall. Dabao had been with Lu Ping for the longest time, and he had made the most contributions for Lu Ping. However, Dabao was funny, and his cultivation was the lowest. Lu Ping's other spiritual pets always bullied him. Dabao had accumulated many things that Lu Ping didn't need, and the other spiritual pets often asked for money from Lu Ping. Lu Ping knew all this, but Lu Ping knew that although Dabao was stingy, he wasn't really stingy. Every time, he would give them the treasures that the other spiritual pets asked for, even though he would grimace in pain every time. The other spiritual pets didn't really need these things. They just thought Dabao was a miser. As long as it was a practicing tool, he would keep it, regardless of its grade. So, they often teamed up to make fun of him. Every time they saw Dabao hand over his spiritual materials for refining low-grade magic tools or 1 or 2 500-year-old spiritual herbs, as if he was cutting his own flesh, the others would gloat and laugh. Dabao would hide in his cave residence angrily and practice hard. He wanted to surpass the others in cultivation so that he could take advantage of them. However, what made people helpless was that Dabao's ambition could only persist until the end of his cultivation, but at least before the end of the cultivation, Dabao's ambition still existed. When Dabao looked up, he saw Lu Dague standing in front of Dabao with a simple and honest face. Seeing Dabao's surprised and angry eyes, he touched his bright head and said with a silly smile, "Hey, brother Dabao, you almost hit the master." Dabao cried in grief and indignation, "Dague, why are you like this too?" Lu Dague smiled, but didn't speak. Dabao saw that he couldn't avoid it this time. In fact, he couldn't avoid it again. He had to say helplessly, "Well, you won, but don't think that I didn't prepare this time." Everyone did not know what Dabao was talking about, but they saw Dabao suddenly turn into a cloud of yellow dust with a bang. The dust rapidly shrank into the ground, and in the blink of an eye, disappeared into the soil. Lu Qina blinked and said with pity, Pang Bao's earth escape technique is getting more and more exquisite. This time, he actually escaped. Lu Ling'er also nodded and said, in the past, Brother Bao's earth escape technique was exquisite, and his ability to escape was first class. But with the few of us working together, even if Brother De Bao didn't help, he still couldn't escape. This time, Brother De Bao's other abilities haven't improved much, but his ability to escape has become more and more perfect. While they were talking, Lu Ping raised his eyebrows, and the yellow smoke that was previously not buried in the ground suddenly came out. The yellow smoke suddenly dissipated, and De Bao proudly stood in the same place. He stretched out his right hand that was clenched behind his back, and a crystal-clear pearl suddenly appeared in De Bao's hand. Lu Qina grabbed the pearl and looked at it for a moment. She had seen such a pearl in Lu Ping's hand before. She said with surprise, a small spirit-gathering pearl? Pang Bao, you are so generous this time. Lu Ling'er's little nose wrinkled, and she said, generous what? Isn't it just taking advantage of others? The spirit-gathering pearl slowly flew from Lu Qina's hand and landed in Lu Ping's hand. Although Lu Ping had already obtained several spirit-gathering pearls, after seeing it this time, he was quite surprised. The small spirit veins on Huangli Island had already been cultivated by Lu Ping to 8. With this one, it was not far from becoming a medium spirit vein. Lu Ping put away the spirit-gathering pearl casually, and asked, De Bao, when did you find a spirit-gathering pearl underground? Although the density of the spirit chi here has reached the level of a giant spirit vein, the spirit vein is not here. De Bao shook his head in confusion, and said, I don't know about this. It's just that in the process of my cultivation breakthrough, when my divine sense was transforming into divine sense, I could vaguely penetrate the ground with my divine sense. I saw that the spirit chi on the ground was gathering towards Master, and at the same time, a spirit-gathering pearl was slowly forming. After Master's cultivation breakthrough and awakening, the surrounding spirit chi dissipated, and this spirit-gathering pearl was also formed. Lu Qina giggled and said, Pang Bao, I can condense a spirit-gathering pearl after my cultivation breakthrough. You also have a breakthrough, why didn't you condense a spirit-gathering pearl? Even if it's a miniature spirit-gathering pearl? Da Bao's round face flushed red, and he said, Little Blue Luan, how do you know that I, Big Brother Bao, did not condense a spirit-gathering pearl? It's just that the spirit chi that I, Big Brother Bao, have also gathered into the spirit-gathering pearl in Master's hand. Lu Ping nodded and said, De Bao is right. The spirit vein that this miniature spirit-gathering pearl can nurture in the future will indeed exceed a whole spirit vein. Hearing Lu Ping's words, De Bao immediately glanced at Lu Qina arrogantly. But then Lu Ping said, unfortunately, the part that exceeded this time is not even enough for a miniature spirit vein. De Bao's face suddenly fell, but the two mischievous kids, Lu Qina and Lu Ling'er, laughed like silver bells. Seeing Lu Qina and Lu Ling'er laughing non-stop, De Bao said angrily, don't think that this is the only treasure I found. After I advanced to the core forging stage, my ability to find treasures has greatly improved. The spirit chi here is so rich, how can there be no treasure? At that time, HMPH. This time, it was De Bao who began to tremble. However, De Bao's words suddenly made everyone's eyes light up. Lu Qina was the most anxious, and she said, Brother Pang Bao, what other treasures did you find? Can you take us to see them? De Bao raised his head and said arrogantly, call me Brother Bao, I don't like people calling me fat. Lu Qina suddenly frowned and said fiercely, Pang Bao, are you going or not? De Bao suddenly shuddered. At this time, Lu Ping said next to him, De Bao, let's go to the treasure you found first. There are not only a few of us in this secret plane. If we are late, maybe others will get it first. De Bao immediately took the opportunity and said, Little Qingwan, it's not that Brother Pang is afraid of you. This is the Master's order. With your explosive temper, be careful that you can't get married in the future. Lu Qina looked at Luan Yu next to her and her face suddenly turned red, but then she was about to attack De Bao again. She didn't know how smart De Bao was. When he said this, he had already turned into a cloud of yellow smoke and disappeared into the ground. Lu Ping smiled and explored with his divine thought. He had already found Dabao, who didn't dive deep into the ground, then he followed Dabao in the direction of Earth escape. The cultivator's divine thought couldn't penetrate very far under the ground, but with Lu Ping's current cultivation, Samling and Lu Dagui hurriedly followed, but after a few steps, everyone snickered. Lu Qina was angry and anxious when she heard everyone snickering, but she didn't know what to say. At this time, Luanyu was about to say something, but she was glared at by Lu Qina. She stomped on the ground, and a fiery true essence was injected into the ground under her feet, burning the ground into a hardened state. Luanyu looked at Lu Qina, who walked forward angrily and shook her head helplessly. A burst of green smoke rose, and the cloth soles on Luanyu's feet had been burned through. Chapter 556. When Luanyu arrived behind the crowd, they were looking at a plant that was half the height of a person. To be precise, they were looking at a fist-sized pale green fruit on the top of the plant. Dabao seemed to be stimulated by someone and shouted, "This fruit must be very strange. Although I, Dabao, am only talented in sensing the gathering and dispersing of spiritual qi, that was before I reached the core forging stage. Now I am a high-level beast cultivator of the core forging stage." Lu Linga suddenly opened her mouth and said, "Pang Bao, did you awaken other talents after you reached the core forging stage?" Dabao was dumbfounded. After a moment, he braced himself and said, "Humph, you have to believe in my intuition. In the future, I will definitely be the most powerful connoisseur in the cultivation world. I will see all the treasures in the world. This fruit must be extraordinary. So that's how it is." Lu Linga seemed to have seen through Dabao's trick and said to Lu Qina with a teasing smile. Dabao saw the two of them teasing him and was immediately annoyed. When he was about to lose his temper, he heard someone behind him say, "Hey, pale wood pure jade fruit. I didn't expect that the spiritual fruit, which has been extinct in the cultivation world for a long time, could still survive here. Moreover, this fruit seems to have reached the point of maturity." When everyone looked back, they saw Luanyu looking at the fruit with a face full of joy. She said while walking. Lu Ping originally thought that this fruit was familiar, but he didn't have a deep impression of it. For a moment, he couldn't remember the origin of this fruit. After hearing Luanyu's words, he suddenly understood. This fruit was the pale wood pure jade fruit that Luanyu had given to Lu Ping in the inheritance record of the Wood Luan clan. Even though Lu Ping had read through the records of this inheritance extremely seriously, the Wood Luan race's tens of thousands of years of collection and records regarding spirit herbs and spirit trees, just how vast was the content? Even though Lu Ping's divine sense far surpassed that of others, how many layers could he see, how much could he remember in a short amount of time? Lu Ping suddenly thought of the use of the pure jade fruit recorded by the Wood Luan clan and said happily, "So this is the pure jade fruit. This is really a rare item. Just this fruit alone makes this trip to the secret place worthwhile." Dabao was originally speechless after being rebuked by several people. When he heard this, he immediately raised his nostrils to the sky and looked at Lu Linga and Lu Qina with disdain. He seemed to be more and more arrogant. Lu Hai, who was like an enigmatic god, suddenly said, "Brother Bao, this posture is very good. In the future, you don't have to be afraid of snot flowing out." Dabao suddenly felt as if there was a stream of snot pouring into his nose, mouth, and throat. He choked and coughed, pointing at Lu Hai and unable to speak. Lu Bai knocked Lu Hai and said, "Second brother, can you not be so disgusting?" Lu Hai laughed and no longer spoke. Lu Bai turned to Lu Ping and asked, "Father, what kind of treasure is this pure jade fruit?" Lu Ping turned to Luanyu and said, "Brother Luan, it's better for you to say it." Luanyu said with a smile, "The reason why this pure jade fruit does not have too much spiritual qi, besides the fact that the spiritual qi in the environment here is too dense, the biggest reason is that this is a kind of spirit fruit that can strengthen the physical strength of cultivators. In the cultivation world, there are only a few spirit herbs and spirit fruits that can be used to strengthen the physical strength. Therefore, the convenience of using these things as materials to make pills is also extremely rare." Seeing that everyone understood the effect of the pure jade fruit, Luanyu said again, I believe you all should understand the benefits of the physical strength. This is an important factor in whether Dharma idol Laozu can pass the tribulation and go further. This pure azure wood fruit can be used to concoct a type of pure azure wood pill. This pill is different from the bone-forging pill that Brother Lu used in the past. The bone-forging pill focuses more on strengthening the cultivator's bones, while the pure azure wood pill is a type of pill that specializes in strengthening the muscles and muscles. If this pill is used on an ordinary cultivator, the cultivator's fleshly body would instantly reach the mid-grade magic treasure stage. This is a relatively high-grade pill used to strengthen the fleshly body. Unfortunately, we do not have the pill recipe for the pure jade pill. Lu Ping asked with some regret, Brother Luan, do you know where to find this pure jade pill? Luan Yu thought for a moment and said, the pill recipe for the pure jade pill is said to be the inheritance of the human race's alchemists. The 5 great sects of the Central Plains may have the inheritance, the other great sects may also have it, and there are also those aristocratic families with a long history, or families that specialize in alchemy, such as the Lu family. At this time, the attentive Lu Bai suddenly said, Father, when that Yuan flew over here, he was flying in the direction of this pure jade fruit. Does that Yuan aristocratic family have the pill recipe for the pure jade pill? Lu Ping nodded, unable to see any clues from his deep affection. Seeing Lu Ping like this, Luan Yu interjected, the Yuan aristocratic family has a long history, comparable to the 5 great sects. It is not strange that the family has this pill recipe passed down. Lu Ping suddenly stepped forward, wanting to pick the pure jade fruit, but Lu Ping had just taken 2 steps forward when Dabao suddenly emerged from the ground, running backwards as he said, Boss, quickly retreat. Lu Ping did not hesitate to retreat. At the same time his divine sense explored the ground, his expression immediately changed and the speed at which he retreated suddenly increased. Seeing Lu Ping like this, the others also retreated. At this moment, the ground within 1,000 feet of the pure jade fruit suddenly began to tremble. Countless roots and branches emerged from the ground and danced wildly in all directions, like a group of demons dancing in a frenzy. The golden scale sword in Lu Ping's hand flashed, cutting off more than a dozen roots, but Lu Ping frowned. The toughness of these roots was far beyond Lu Ping's expectation. Looking at the pure jade fruit 1,000 feet away, Lu Ping could not help but feel a little annoyed. The others also used their own methods. Luan Yu's hand shot out a mass of cyan blue flame, burning off the 5 roots. Then, he stretched out his hand and shot out a fist-sized true essence ball. The true essence ball split into 3 small balls in midair and submerged into the 3 tentacles. These 3 tentacles were immediately controlled by Luan Yu, and began to strangle the surrounding roots. The 2 wheels in Lu Qina's hands, one turned into a ring of wind, the other turned into a ring of fire. The 2 rings of fire crisscrossed, strangling the roots at a speed straight to Luan Yu. However, Lu Qina's speed was not as fast as Samling's. Lu Hai's hands gathered together, condensing a cloud of mist in the middle, hitting the roots in front of him. The mist had just enveloped more than a dozen roots. When Lu Linger stretched out her hand, the waving movements of the roots suddenly became sluggish. Each root was covered with white frost. At this moment, Lu Bai suddenly emitted several blue wind blades. More than a dozen frozen and brittle plants were broken. The parts hit by the wind blades all turned into ice. Lu Dagui took out his own armor and transformed it into a shield magic treasure. The 4 shields flew out and surrounded Lu Dagui. At this moment, a yellow light suddenly appeared behind Lu Dagui. Dabao wiped the sweat off his forehead and sat down on the ground in fear. He said weakly, "Oh my God, what the hell is this? It's too powerful. I was almost bound to the ground and couldn't come up. It seems that escaping through the earth isn't safe either." Dagui's naive voice sounded, but with a hint of urgency, said, "Brother Bao, if you don't help, we will be in trouble." When Dabao looked out of the 4 shields, he saw dozens of roots firmly trapping the 4 shields that Daegui had extended outwards. The roots actually intertwined to form a thick rope that bound the 4 shields together. The rope was desperately shrinking towards the center, and the 4 shields creaked as if they were about to be crushed at any moment. Bao suddenly jumped up from the ground. As he landed, he suddenly stomped on the ground. The 4 earthen walls suddenly rose up from the ground, and the 4 shields instantly turned into 4 balls of spirit water that merged with the earthen walls. The earthen walls were quickly reinforced, and dozens of ropes formed from roots suddenly loosened, rose up, and pulled out. With a pa sound, a huge ravine appeared on the earthen walls. Dabao jumped up and down again, baring his teeth as he cursed, "Your grandpa Shu is going to die from the pain. Just you wait, your grandpa Shu will definitely burn all of you to ashes in just a moment." As soon as Dabao's voice fell, he saw a golden sword light flash. In the past, Dabao could not catch the sword light in Lu Ping's hand, but now that he had advanced to the core forging stage, he finally caught the sword light. However, in his heart, he had a more intuitive understanding of the power of Lu Ping's swordsmanship, and in his heart, he had a more intuitive understanding of the power of Lu Ping's swordsmanship. In his heart, there was a trace of awe for Lu Ping than before he advanced to the core forging stage. At this time, Lu Ping did not care about the spiritual energy turbulence caused by the use of swordsmanship, which would attract the attention of other cultivators, because these countless roots had already stirred up the spiritual energy in this secret area. Even if Lu Ping did not make a move, it would attract the attention of other cultivators in this secret area. Even if Lu Ping did not make a move, it would attract the attention of other cultivators in this secret area. If Lu Ping made a move now, he would have the upper hand. Everyone, work together. When Luan Yu saw Lu Ping use his great swordsmanship to cut off nearly 100 roots in front of him, he immediately understood what Lu Ping meant. He raised his hands one after another, and a row of 6 true essence balls flew out from his hands, turning into 18 small true essence balls and submerging into the roots. The 18 roots were under Luan Yu's control, and suddenly more than 50 roots around them were tightly entangled. Samling and Lu Qina took the opportunity to use their own methods to cut off more than 50 roots as quickly as possible. Everyone advanced more than 10 feet in an instant. Lu Ping followed closely behind, using the famous great magical power passed down by his teacher, Liu Tianling. Lu Ping used 5 water spouts. Each water spout covered more than 20 roots, and each root was tightly bound by the water spout. Only when there were 7 water spouts could it be regarded as a great magical power. Lu Ping was still 2 water spouts away from his 4th great magical power. Chapter 557. Lu Ping wielded his golden scale sword and netherwater sword at the same time. As the hundreds of roots were bound by the water spout and unable to resist, the netherwater sword no longer had to deliberately use the sword technique to make itself invisible. He used the raging waves hitting the shore's sword technique, which he had not used for a long time. The pair of flying swords turned into a golden wheel and a blue light, and they rushed towards the thick roots one after the other. Using this sword technique again, Lu Ping suddenly had a different feeling. Lu Ping had long since discovered that the raging waves hitting the shore's sword technique was actually more suitable for using a pair of flying swords to bring out the essence of this sword technique. However, since the flying wings dual swords had been broken, Lu Ping had never had the opportunity to obtain a pair of good flying swords. Therefore, he did not have a deep understanding of this sword technique. This time, when Lu Ping used it again, although the golden scale sword and the netherwater sword were not a complete set of flying swords, and the 2 flying swords were even different in nature, with Lu Ping's attainments in swordsmanship, he was still able to control the 2 flying swords and barely use them as a pair of flying swords. However, the power displayed by the raging waves hitting the shore's sword technique greatly surprised Lu Ping. At this time, Lu Ping's swordsmanship had already risen to the true temple of swordsmanship in the cultivation world, and the only thing he lacked was cultivation. At this time, when Lu Ping looked back at this sword technique, he suddenly found that the true essence of this sword technique had not been discovered by Lu Ping at all. The raging waves hitting the shore's sword technique was more than a set of exquisite swordsmanship. If it was really practiced to the extreme, how could its power be inferior to that of a great magical skill? Discovering a powerful magical skill from the inheritance of his family's swordsmanship made Lu Ping both surprised and regretful. If he had known this, Lu Ping would have asked Zhenling's weapon refiner to refine a set of flying swords for him. But now was not the time for regret, because at this time, Lu Ping's divine thought had already captured that someone was coming in this direction. Lu Ping had already retracted his bloodline suppression, which was accompanied by his divine will, surged towards the incoming person in an overwhelming manner. Sure enough, the newcomer was intimidated by Lu Ping's power. He stood there motionlessly, as if he was hesitating about something. Lu Ping, Luan Yu, and the others advanced another 100 feet towards the azure wood pure jade fruit. At that moment, Lu Ping abruptly raised his head and saw that another cultivator was rushing over from where the previous cultivator was. After meeting up with the previous cultivator, they once again rushed towards the verdant wood pure jadeite fruit. This time, however, they were much more cautious. 2 late core forging adepts actually dared to beat up a Dharma adept, Chofeng? Lu Ping instantly understood. Dharma adepts were originally unable to enter the secret area, so if there really was a Dharma adept here, then it must be because he had just used the violent spiritual chi to trigger an advancement opportunity and was lucky enough to advance to the Dharma adept. Such a adept's cultivation had not yet stabilized, so how could he have the confidence to face the joint attack of other late core forging adepts? Moreover, these 2 late core forging adepts dared to challenge a Dharma adept. Then, these 2 people were most likely either from the Crystal Palace or the Yuan clan. Only these 2 families had the strength and confidence to dare to use late core forging adepts to fight against Dharma adepts. Moreover, Lu Ping and the others were not Dharma adepts. Once these 2 people arrived, everyone's true cultivation would be immediately exposed. At that time, not only would they not be able to scare off the adepts, but they would also end up being hunted down by the adepts. Thinking of this, the 2 flying swords in Lu Ping's hands could not help but speed up a bit. At the same time, De Bao and Dargui also joined forces to open up the road to the azure wood pure jade fruit. Unfortunately, these 2 people's strength was really poor. Lu Dargui's strength was reflected in the shield in his hand, and De Bao's mind was completely focused on escaping. Although these 2 people could increase the effectiveness of the shield, they did not help much in speeding up the progress of Lu Ping. Lu Ping opened his mouth and blew, and the eastern purple flame suddenly flew out from Lu Ping's storage instrument, suddenly covering dozens of roots that were waving towards Lu Ping. Before the eastern purple flame could burn these dozens of roots, a black demonic flame suddenly flew out from Lu Ping's hand, once again burning dozens of roots with a crackling sound. The speed of this flame was no less than that of the eastern purple flame. Seeing that the 2 people were getting closer and closer to Lu Ping, they could discover the true cultivation level of Lu Ping and the others at any time. Lu Ping was very anxious. As he used all his strength to cut off the roots in front of him, he used his divine will to see if there was anything else in the storage instrument that could be used to speed up the process of getting the azure wood pure jade fruit. At this time, Lu Ping's heart moved, and a ball of golden liquid floated above his palm. Lu Ping stretched out his hand, and the golden liquid collapsed into a cloud of golden mist that scattered towards the roots. The moment these roots were shrouded by the golden mist, it was as if they were scalded by boiling water, and they quickly shrank back into the ground. Lu Ping was secretly happy, and he hurriedly moved forward. However, just as Lu Ping condensed the golden mist again, the roots that had shrunk back into the ground once again popped out and wrapped around Lu Ping. Lu Ping had no choice but to once again disperse the golden mist, and at the same time, cast the myriad poison meteorite gang to temporarily protect his body. When the roots came into contact with the golden mist and the golden myriad poison meteorite gang, they immediately shrank back into the ground. Lu Ping, who seemed to be surrounded by the roots, began to move forward in the middle of the waving roots. Although his speed was still very slow, it was much better than using magic treasures to clear these roots bit by bit. At least, Lu Ping did not need to spend a lot of true essence to cut these roots. At this time, 2 late core forging realm cultivators rushed over from afar. Judging by their clothes, Lu Ping guessed that they were cultivators from the Crystal Palace. The 2 Crystal Palace cultivators saw that the waving roots were surrounding the verdant wood pure jade fruit, and they were first delighted. However, when they saw that Lu Ping was actually able to move forward in the middle of the waving roots, they frowned. Before the 2 cultivators appeared, Lu Ping had already collected Luan Yu and the others into the Golden House. Lu Ping had also stopped attacking. Relying on the effects of the myriad poison meteorite gang and the myriad poison liquid, he forcibly opened a path through the waving roots and walked towards the verdant wood pure jade fruit. After Lu Ping walked past, the shrinking roots behind him stretched out again. At the same time, they also blocked the path that Lu Ping had opened. It seemed that these roots were letting Lu Ping pass. The two Crystal Palace cultivators looked at each other and seemed to be discussing something. The two of them made a half circle and appeared on the path that Lu Ping and the others had opened up. They directly walked in, and as a result, they were directly behind Lu Ping. With the help of the path that Lu Ping and the others had opened up, they shortened the distance between them and Lu Ping. At the same time, they also blocked Lu Ping's path of retreat. What an arrogant Crystal Palace cultivator! Lu Ping's divine sense detected that one of the Crystal Palace cultivators suddenly took out two swords and said something. The swords flew in two different directions. Obviously, they were summoning their fellow disciples from the Crystal Palace. This was using late core forging realm cultivators to besiege a transcendence realm cultivator. Lu Ping's expression turned serious. In the overseas cultivation world, only the Crystal Palace cultivators would dare and have the ability to do such a thing. Lu Ping's expression did not change, but he secretly increased the amount of myriad poison liquid he used. The true essence in his body disappeared like flowing water. However, the speed at which Lu Ping moved forward did not increase by much. At this time, Lu Ping could no longer use other offensive methods to advance. Because once Lu Ping attacked, Lu Ping's true cultivation would be exposed in front of the Crystal Palace cultivators. Lu Ping was currently disguised as a cultivator who had just advanced to the Transcendence realm, but the Crystal Palace cultivators still dared to gang up on him. If Lu Ping really revealed his core forging realm cultivation, the two Crystal Palace cultivators behind him would immediately attack and kill Lu Ping. Just as Lu Ping was trying to open up the space in the Golden House to draw out more myriad poison liquid, Lu Ping's divine sense suddenly captured an aura from the opened space passage. Through the space passage, the aura seemed to be curiously and nervously looking at the outside world. There was even a trace of excitement and impatience in the aura. Lu Ping paid attention to this aura with a strange expression. However, he did not stop this aura from leaking out of the Golden House. However, after this aura emerged from the space passage that Lu Ping had specially opened up and adapted to the outside environment, it quickly established a mysterious connection with the waving roots on the ground. Even Lu Ping did not know what would happen next. However, to Lu Ping's surprise, when this aura came into contact with the roots, they suddenly stood up straight like steel needles. They no longer waved around and attacked. Lu Ping walked around the roots in disbelief. As expected, the roots did not attack Lu Ping. After Lu Ping walked over, the upright roots slowly wriggled again, returning to their previous menacing state. Lu Ping was overjoyed. Following the guidance of this aura, he walked around the roots as if he was walking around a small tree. The roots seemed to have treated Lu Ping as one of their own. The Crystal Palace cultivators behind Lu Ping, who were blocked by the roots, looked at Lu Ping leisurely waving the roots in a dumbfounded manner. Lu Ping walked up to the azure wood pure jade fruit, took out a jade essence box from his storage magic treasure, carefully picked the fruit and put it into the jade box. At this moment, the Crystal Palace cultivators seemed to wake up from a dream. Seeing that Lu Ping was going to leave in another direction, the two of them quickly went around the waving roots to where Lu Ping was going. They tried to cut off Lu Ping's path and trap Lu Ping among the roots. When the other cultivators from the Crystal Palace arrived, they would besiege Lu Ping. At that time, even if Lu Ping advanced to the Dharma manifestation stage, under the siege of the Crystal Palace's Dao Soldier formation, Lu Ping could only die. In this way, not only would the azure wood pure jade fruit be in the Crystal Palace's pocket, but Lu Ping's wealth would also be a windfall for the Crystal Palace cultivators. Chapter 558. A few more flashes of light fell from the sky. 4 Crystal Palace cultivators at the late stage of core forging realm appeared from the flashes of light. Although the 2 Crystal Palace cultivators looked happy, The 6 cultivators at the late stage of core forging realm stared at Lu Ping, who was walking leisurely among the roots. They no longer concealed their intention to kill Lu Ping. Lu Ping seemed to not see them. He still walked in the previous direction unhurriedly toward the trap of the Dao soldier formation set by the 6 Crystal Palace cultivators. As Lu Ping got closer and closer to the 6 cultivators, the 6 Crystal Palace cultivators began to doubt themselves. What did this cultivator mean? Did he really think that he could fight against the Dao soldier formation formed by the 6 late-stage core forging realm cultivators of the Crystal Palace by himself? The 6 Crystal Palace cultivators dared to fight against a cultivator who had just entered the Dharma characteristic stage with their late-stage core forging realm cultivation because they had won several battles against Dharma characteristic stage cultivators. They even had a record of killing Dharma characteristic stage cultivators more than once. Therefore, they were so sure of their own strength. However, this cultivator, who seemed to come from the central region, did not look anxious at all. Did he also have a trump card that allowed him to escape from the siege of the 6 cultivators? The faces of the 6 cultivators from Crystal Palace grew solemn and they spread their divine senses outwards. However, they found nothing. They did not find any cultivators who might be here to receive this person. Immediately, the 6 of them looked at one another. Lu Ping bypassed a route, and his hidden face was immediately exposed to the Crystal Palace cultivators. A cultivator from the Lu family of the central region. I know this person. He is called Lu Runjian. He is one of the 2nd-generation disciples of the Lu family of the central region. He is very promising to advance to the Dharma characteristic stage. I didn't expect that a cultivator from the Lu family would be so lucky to meet him. The Lu family killed the alchemist of our sect, Peng Shiyuan. This time, we happened to meet Lu Runjian. His status and achievements are similar to Master Peng's. God wants us to avenge Master Peng Shiyuan. That's right. The Crystal Palace has never suffered such a loss. A middle-level family from the central region actually dared to attack a cultivator of our sect. Even the 5 giant sects of the central region wouldn't dare to do it so blatantly. When Lu Ping entered the secret plane, Lyra Laozu gave Lu Ping a mask magic weapon. Lu Ping originally wanted to change himself into the appearance of Yuan Feixiang. However, he immediately remembered that Yuan Feixiang was only at the 7th level of the core forging realm at the beginning. After advancing in the secret plane, she was only at the 8th level of the core forging realm. She was not a cultivator of the Dharma characteristic stage at all. Lu Ping thought about it and changed his appearance to the peak core forging realm cultivator of the Lu family, Lu Runjian. Although there was no clear hatred between Lu Runjian and Lu Ping, at this time, Lu Ping did not know other cultivators who entered the secret plane. Naturally, it was better for him to die than for him. How could Lu Ping care so much? Seeing Lu Ping walking over with a smile, it seemed that he was going to greet the 6 people. The 6 Crystal Palace cultivators unconsciously clenched their fists, and a trace of nervousness suddenly began to brew in the hearts of the 6 people. Lu Ping had walked into the attack range of the 6 people at this time, but at this time, there were still many roots in front of Lu Ping. The 6 people saw that Lu Ping was so arrogant, so they simply waited for him to walk out of the roots. At that time, they could avoid the weakening of the power of the Dao soldier formation formed by the 6 people. However, just as Lu Ping walked to the edge of the range covered by the roots, the 6 Crystal Palace cultivators suddenly saw Lu Ping look up and smile at them. A Crystal Palace cultivator suddenly woke up and said, "Not good, he is going to escape." 6 magic treasures suddenly rose from the hands of the 6 cultivators. They combined in mid-air and turned into a silver crystal cover, covering Lu Ping. A restraining force was emitted from the crystal cover and went straight for Lu Ping's head. However, it was too late. Lu Ping suddenly plunged into the ground and disappeared from the ground. The silver crystal cover fell down, but it did not confine Lu Ping in it. The 6 Crystal Palace cultivators each stretched out their hands and pressed down. The whole ground suddenly shook, as if there was a strong earthquake. Countless cracks spread on the ground without any pattern, as if the ground had been squeezed into a pot of porridge by the 6 people just now. However, The six people's attack on the ground did not achieve much. Countless roots stretched out from the ground. Although the six people's attack was sharp, it was intercepted by countless roots and was constantly weakened. After a long time, there was still no movement on the ground. One of the Crystal Palace cultivators said suspiciously, "Has he already died?" He did not have much confidence in his own tone. Although our attack was weakened by the underground roots, even a Dharma phase cultivator would be shaken to the point of vomiting blood and breaking off the escape technique. With Lu Runjian's cultivation, it is impossible for him to be killed by us so easily. Then, there is only one possibility. This person has mastered an extremely brilliant earth escape technique. He actually relied on his speed to escape the joint attack of the six of us. The cultivators from the Crystal Palace had no choice but to admit that this encirclement had most likely failed. After a while, the six people left in different directions. A few miles away from where they were, Lu Ping drilled out from the ground with a head full of grass and wood dust. He used a dust avoidance technique to remove all the dust on his body. There was only a layer of yellow light left on Lu Ping's body. Lu Ping patted the yellow light and the light immediately shrank back into the golden house on his chest. This was because after Dabao advanced to the core forging stage, his earth escape technique had finally been strengthened again. He could attach his own magical power to another person's body through his inner yuan and give them the ability to earth escape technique. Every time Lu Ping was in danger, he would rely on Dabao's earth escape technique to hide in the ground. Although he was able to escape danger every time, Dabao's poor accumulation of Fa Li often caused Lu Ping to be stuck in the ground. Although he managed to escape with his life, he often exhausted his inner yuan and even vomited blood due to serious injuries. After advancing to the core forging stage, Dabao finally perfected his half-baked earth escape technique. The earth escape technique was no longer limited to him and he no longer had to embarrass Lu Ping because of Dabao's shallow accumulation of Fa Li. He also no longer had to pass out every time he used earth escape technique because of the exhaustion of his Fa Li. Lu Ping observed his surroundings. After confirming that there were no other cultivators hiding nearby, Lu Ping sent his divine sense into the golden house. Inside the golden house, Luan Yu, Samling, and the others were discussing something around the spirit demon peach tree. Dabao was constantly walking around the spirit demon peach tree, looking at it from top to bottom. It seemed as if he had gained a new understanding of the spirit demon peach tree. Inside the golden house, there was no wind all year round. However, now that everyone was whispering around the spirit demon peach tree with a curious expression, the entire crown of the spirit demon peach tree moved without any wind and made rustling sounds. It seemed as if the tree was shivering. At this moment, Lu Ping's divine sense descended into the golden house. The spirit demon peach tree seemed as if it had suddenly met a loved one. The crown of the spirit demon peach tree shook violently. In the eyes of others, the reaction of the spirit demon peach tree was no different from the reaction of Luan Yu and the others when they surrounded the spirit demon peach tree. However, Lu Ping could feel a sense of joy, desire, and attachment to Lu Ping from the aura of the spirit demon peach tree's divine sense. Lu Ping's divine sense condensed into a blue halo in mid-air. The halo emitted a gentle blue light that shone on the crown of the spirit demon peach tree. It was as if a father was comforting his frightened daughter by caressing her head to give her a sense of security. Sure enough, under the comfort of Lu Ping's divine sense, the spirit demon peach tree finally calmed down. Lu Ping sensed that the spirit demon peach tree was emitting an aura that was exactly the same as the one that could completely nullify the attack of the roots that extended from underground. His heart was in turmoil. What was the relationship between this secret zone and the spirit demon peach tree? Why was the spirit demon peach tree able to control the violent underground roots in the secret zone? Could it be that the opportunity for the spirit demon peach tree had arrived? If it weren't for the fact that Lu Ping was sure that the surrounding roots would not attack him, Lu Ping would not have dared to use the earth escape technique to escape from the place where the roots extended out. That was simply courting death. However, it was precisely because of the aura of the spirit demon peach tree that Lu Ping not only quickly escaped from the area with the help of Dabao's earth escape technique, But after the Crystal Palace cultivators launched a joint attack, the underground roots spontaneously gathered behind Lu Ping, protecting Lu Ping. Otherwise, even if Lu Ping had De Bao's earth escape technique, he would not be able to escape unscathed under the siege of the Dao soldiers formed by the late-stage core forging realm cultivators from the Crystal Palace. Lu Ping naturally knew that these roots were not actually protecting him at all, but protecting the spirit demon peach tree in the Golden House. After the spirit demon peach tree was calmed down by Lu Ping, it once again captured a message from the simple fluctuations of the spirit demon peach tree's divine sense. It was going to find something. Lu Ping was surprised and naturally asked where to find it. The answer given by the spirit demon peach tree made Lu Ping even more awestruck. Just now, because of curiosity, the spirit demon peach tree opened the passage to the Golden House when Lu Ping extracted the 1,000 poison syrup from the Golden House. At the same time, it also used its own aura to look at the outside world through the space passage. However, it was noticed by a great existence. Now, the spirit demon peach tree actually said that it wanted to pay a visit. Lu Ping naturally did not dare to be careless. He hurriedly asked if the great existence that the spirit demon peach tree mentioned was the commander of those roots. This time, the spirit demon peach tree said yes and then no, making Lu Ping a little confused. Lu Ping's communication with the spirit demon peach tree did not intentionally avoid Luan Yu and the others. On the contrary, from time to time, he would share the information that he understood and even guessed from the simple expressions of the spirit demon peach tree. At this time, Luan Yu asked, "Little peach tree, where is the great existence that you mentioned? How is it great?" This time, the spirit demon peach tree was unable to answer. It could only express one thing: big, very big. Chapter 559. Lu Ping changed his appearance once more and followed the directions given by the spirit peach tree. Strangely enough, Lu Ping did not find a single cultivator in the secret zone along the way. Lu Ping first walked past a garden filled with spiritual grasses. Some of the spiritual grasses had been growing for a long time, reaching the height of half a person. However, when Lu Ping walked past the spiritual grasses, the densely packed spiritual grasses fell to the sides, revealing a path. Lu Ping looked at the spiritual grasses in the garden. Almost all of them were over 1,000 years old. 3,000-year-old spiritual grasses took up almost a third of the spiritual grasses. Many of them were extremely rare spiritual grasses. Lu Ping even found several types of spiritual grasses that had long been extinct in the world of cultivation. Not only were they growing here, they were also growing in an extremely luxuriant manner. After seeing the spiritual grasses, Lu Ping instinctively wanted to bend down and pick the spiritual grasses first. However, the spirit peach tree in the Golden House suddenly emitted a violent fluctuation. It seemed to be extremely anxious. Lu Ping pondered for a moment. Then, he used his divine sense to ask the spirit peach tree in the Golden House, "You mean to say that I cannot pick these spiritual grasses?" The crown of the spirit peach tree suddenly rustled once more. Lu Ping could hear the joy that the spirit peach tree was expressing. Lu Ping looked regretfully at the tens of thousands of spiritual grasses growing on the ground. Among them, there were nearly 4,000 3,000-year-old spiritual grasses. Lu Ping turned his head and no longer looked at the spiritual grasses on the ground. Instead, he hurriedly walked through the path that the spiritual grasses had opened up. Lu Ping was afraid that if he looked at them for too long, he would no longer be able to resist the temptation in his heart. After Lu Ping walked through the spiritual grasses that had fallen to the sides once again stood upright. The path that Lu Ping had walked through previously was once again hidden. At this moment, a layer of dense energy appeared above the spiritual grasses. This dense energy filled the air above the spiritual grasses. Suddenly, the spiritual grasses disappeared from the ground. What appeared in front of him was a rocky cliff. Lu Ping passed through the spirit grass and appeared in front of him again in the Blackwater swamp. From time to time, sticky bubbles would pop up from the muddy ground in the swamp. Some of the bubbles would burst and release a sweet smell, while others would release a foul stench. Some of the bubbles would form a dense cloud of air, while others would be colorless and odorless, nowhere to be found. Lu Ping's eyes flashed with blue light, but he could not see through the slightest bit of this blackwater swamp. It seemed that there was no place in this swamp that people could safely land on. Rather than saying that this was a swamp full of traps, it was better to say that this was simply a bottomless quagmire. Once someone fell into it, there was only the fate of being swallowed. Before Lu Ping arrived in front of the swamp in the distance, a layer of golden luster suddenly appeared in the middle of the blue spiritual grasses and entered into Lu Ping's body through his nose. Immediately, it turned into a gentle liquid and merged with Lu Ping's blood vessels. The moment the spiritual energy in Lu Ping's body encountered this liquid, it was like snow under the sun, turning into nothing by this liquid. Lu Ping was startled, and a layer of golden luster suddenly appeared in the middle of the blue spiritual energy, firmly resisting this invisible liquid. Then, the spiritual energy in his blood vessels was completely mobilized, and countless golden rays of light emitted from his blood vessels, almost dyeing Lu Ping's entire blood vessels gold. The myriad meteoric poisons condensed from the spiritual energy in his blood vessels was stimulated by Lu Ping, forcing this invisible liquid to a point and began to gradually swallow and dissolve it. However, this liquid was extremely tenacious. Although it was still being swallowed by the myriad meteoric poisons drop by drop, the process was extremely slow. After a long time, from the outside, Lu Ping's entire body seemed to be emitting a faint golden brilliance. After a moment, Lu Ping's palm turned over, and a jade crystal bottle appeared in Lu Ping's palm. Lu Ping placed his left index finger above the mouth of the bottle. Lu Ping's index finger was suddenly dyed blood red, and then a faint golden color appeared in the blood red. Then, a faint cyan color gradually appeared on the tip of his index finger. The range of the cyan color grew larger and larger, almost occupying a third of his fingertip. A drop of cyan liquid gradually condensed on the tip of Lu Ping's index finger. The water droplet became larger and larger, and gradually, it could no longer adhere to the index finger. Finally, it separated from the index finger and fell to the bottom of the bottle, issuing a crisp sound. Then, another drop of cyan liquid condensed and fell into the jade crystal bottle. This happened 3 times, and the cyan liquid finally stopped condensing. The invisible liquid that had previously been immersed in Lu Ping's spiritual energy was also completely forced out of his body by Lu Ping. Looking at the swamp in front of him, Lu Ping had a lingering fear in his heart. He quickly used the myriad poison meteorite gang to protect his body, and completely wrapped himself in the aura chi. Just as the myriad poison meteorite gang was propped up, the originally golden aura chi was suddenly dyed with a multicolored demonic color. Lu Ping was even more amazed in his heart. The myriad poison meteorite gang was a aura chi refined from the mother of all poisons, the myriad poison serum. Its golden color itself was a tool for testing poisons. After the invisible sweet poisonous gas had invaded Lu Ping's spiritual energy, it had condensed into a cyan liquid under the pressure of the myriad poison meteorite gang. At this time, the golden myriad poison meteorite gang had been dyed into a multicolored color. Obviously, the poisons contained in this swamp were not only fierce to the point that the myriad poison meteorite gang could not be dissolved in a short period of time, and could only be used as a temporary defense. Moreover, the swamp contained a wide variety of poisons. This made Lu Ping very surprised. There were many poisons in the cultivation world that could not coexist. Although the myriad poison serum could contain tens of thousands of poisons, the contained poisons had been transformed into a completely new kind of poison. It was not that the various poisons existed independently and did not interfere with each other. This swamp was unexpectedly able to contain all kinds of different poisons together without conflicting with each other. It seemed that this swamp also had its own special characteristics. However, at this time, the difficulty that Lu Ping was facing was how to pass through this swamp. If this swamp was not too large, Lu Ping could rely on the myriad poison meteorite gang to resist the poisons and his own strong chi to fly across. However, this swamp seemed to be endless. If Lu Ping exhausted his chi in the process of flying, he feared that he would not even have a place to land. Just as Lu Ping was feeling a little helpless, The aura of the spirit monster peach tree once again seeped out from the golden house. Lu Ping was originally afraid that the poisonous gas outside might cause harm to the spirit monster peach tree's divine sense aura. Unexpectedly, after the aura of the spirit monster peach tree was released, the poisonous gas that had dyed Lu Ping's protective aura into a multicolored color had a clear movement. Lu Ping was startled, and then he found that there was an invisible divine sense aura in the swamp. This aura was similar to the aura of the spirit monster peach tree, but it was not the same. Before Lu Ping could carefully feel the difference between the two auras seemed to have reached an agreement and instantly retracted. Before Lu Ping could ask the spirit monster peach tree in the golden house what happened, more bubbles suddenly appeared in the swamp. Because of the absorption of the poisonous gas, the 5 colors on the surface of the myriad poison meteorite gang began to fade, but now it became stronger again. It was even several times stronger than the previous good medicine. Lu Ping's face changed greatly, and he quickly retreated. Unexpectedly, the spirit monster peach tree's divine sense in the golden house clearly told Lu Ping that there would not be too much danger. At this time, there were no more bubbles in the swamp. Instead, there was a lot of mud, as if something was going to come out of the swamp. However, Lu Ping's expression was still solemn, because there was more and more mud coming out of the swamp. With Lu Ping as the starting point, it spread all the way to an extremely far place. If there was really something hidden in the swamp, then this thing must be huge. Hululu, there were still roots coming out of the swamp, and they were even thicker than the roots found at the azure wood pure jade fruit. Each root was as thick as a person's waist. These roots came out of the swamp and connected with each other. A few roots were side by side, forming a 3 feet wide bridge. The bridge extended further and further above the swamp. In the distance, there were still many roots that gradually floated out of the swamp. Mud constantly flowed down from the newly risen roots, revealing the original appearance of the bright yellow roots. After the roots emerged from the swamp, no more poisonous gas leaked out. Lu Ping's meteoric poison energy shield was able to withstand the corrosive effects of the poisonous gas when the roots emerged from the swamp. After that, there was no further corrosive effects. Lu Ping's meteoric poison energy shield was able to withstand the corrosive effects. Under the urging of the spirit monster peach tree, Lu Ping finally stepped on the pontoon formed by these roots and walked towards the other end of the swamp where the edge could not be seen clearly. Although Lu Ping's protective aura was no longer flashing the strong colors of 5 colors like before, there was still poisonous gas around Lu Ping, so the golden aura was always stained with a layer of faint 5 colors. However, these poisons could no longer bring pressure to Lu Ping at this time. On the contrary, because of the thinning of the poisonous gas, the fusion and evolution process of the myriad poison meteorite gang was accelerated. While walking on the root pontoon bridge, Lu Ping suddenly thought of something. When he looked back, he found that the pontoon bridge behind him was already shrouded by a thick layer of fog. In the fog, Lu Ping couldn't see if the pontoon bridge was still there. In the surrounding swamp, except for the occasional 1 or 2 bubbles that struggled to break through the shackles of the mud and floated up, it seemed that there was only the sound of Lu Ping's feet stepping on the bridge in the whole world. Lu Ping did not know how long this silent journey had passed. It was as if Lu Ping suddenly passed through something. When he looked up, the other side of the swamp was already in sight. Chapter 560. Lu Ping had just arrived on the shore of the pontoon bridge. When he turned around to look, the pontoon bridge formed by the roots behind him had unknowingly sunk into the swamp, and the entire swamp had also unknowingly been covered by a thick fog. Lu Ping's eyes flashed with blue light, but he was no longer able to clearly see the situation in the swamp. On the shore was a cluster of thorns as tall as a person. Lu Ping turned around and was unable to see the situation behind the cluster of thorns. Lu Ping carefully looked at these thorns and found that these thorns and rattans were good spiritual materials for refining high-grade and top-grade magic tools. Some of the spiritual materials were of excellent quality and could even be used to refine magic tools. Lu Ping resisted the desire to chop down all these thorns and passed through the gap of the cluster of thorns. A rich spiritual energy along with a burst of fragrance directly entered his nose. Lu Ping was startled and quickly stopped his breathing. At the same time, the golden-yellow myriad meteorite vitality shield immediately came out from his body. However, Lu Ping found that this fragrance was not poison, but the genuine fragrance of flowers. Moreover, this rich spiritual energy was slightly inferior to when Lu Ping first entered the secret plane, but it was extremely peaceful, without the slightest bit of manic violence. However, as a result, after a cultivator entered, they would not be able to immediately trigger the opportunity for their own cultivation to advance. When Lu Ping looked up, both of his eyes seemed to be fixed, unable to move an inch. A sea of flowers. A boundless sea of flowers. This was a true sea of flowers. Tall flowering trees, low flowering shrubs, petals on the ground, the entire world was only left with this colorful natural beauty. It seemed that other than this, there was nothing else that could attract people's attention. However, if all of this was only beautiful, it would at most make Lu Ping sigh. What really shocked Lu Ping was that in the depths of the sea of flowers, there was a towering tree that reached into the clouds, so tall that Lu Ping could not see its peak. If it was not for the fact that Lu Ping was standing far enough, he would not have thought that this was a giant tree. Because it was impossible to perceive the full appearance of the giant tree from up close, he would only think that in front of him was a magnificent wooden wall. While Lu Ping was in a daze, an impatient aura came out from the spatial passage that Lu Ping had deliberately left behind in the Golden House. When this aura appeared, the sea of flowers in front of Lu Ping suddenly moved even though there was no wind. Countless fresh flowers began to sway and dance, and colorful petals floated down from the sky as if they were cheering for the arrival of the spirit peach tree. Lu Ping walked straight towards the sea of flowers. A small path that no one had ever walked on led straight ahead. When Lu Ping looked up, he saw that it was in the direction of the towering tree. The moment the aura of the spirit peach tree appeared, Lu Ping clearly felt the special aura that had come into contact with the spirit peach tree flash by. And Lu Ping also felt that although the aura did not appear again, it seemed to be everywhere. At this moment, Lu Ping's every move could not escape the detection of the owner of the aura. Lu Ping looked up at the towering tree. The giant tree was as tall as the clouds, still as a mountain, but Lu Ping's intuition told him that the source of the omnipresent special aura came from this towering tree. Could it be that this towering tree was a spirit demon tree? If this towering tree was truly a spirit demon tree, then just what level of cultivation did this spirit demon tree have to reach in order to have such a huge body? But then Lu Ping thought that the spirit demon tree's main body was here, and it had used various methods to lead Lu Ping and the others here. Obviously, it was because this spirit medicine had not succeeded in transforming. Otherwise, it would not have used such a method to lead Lu Ping here. It should have gone there personally. If the spirit demon tree could not advance to the core forging realm, it naturally could not separate from its main body and successfully transform. This spirit demon tree obviously had not succeeded in transforming, but its main body was so huge. Could it be that the spirit demon tree's inability to transform didn't affect its cultivation? If this spirit demon tree was like the spirit demon peach tree and was only at the late blood condensation realm, then Lu Ping would not believe it. Just as Lu Ping and Lu Ping were imagining things, a buzzing sound suddenly came from the space channel that Lu Ping had opened for the spirit demon peach tree. Lu Ping's eyebrows twitched, and his divine sense temporarily closed the space channel. At the same time, his divine sense asked the spirit demon peach tree something. After that, Lu Ping reopened the space tunnel, but only left a small gap. The spirit monster peach tree's divine sense spread out from the space tunnel and made contact with the mysterious divine sense from before. Lu Ping could clearly sense from the communication between the two divine senses that the mysterious divine sense exuded after receiving Lu Ping's request from the spirit monster peach tree. The divine sense immediately exuded a sense of joy and burst out violently. As expected, after the divine sense was separated from the spirit demon peach tree, the spirit demon peach tree finally gave Lu Ping a satisfactory answer. Lu Ping looked at the endless sea of flowers, and his heart was filled with joy. Although not every flower in this sea of flowers was a spiritual herb, almost every one of them was at least 500 years old. Moreover, after Lu Ping roughly checked the sea of flowers in front of him, he discovered that more than half of the flowers were spiritual herbs. This time, Lu Ping completely opened the space channel of the House of Gold. A golden door suddenly appeared in front of Lu Ping, and with a loud buzzing sound, 12 silver peaks flew out from the door. They paused in the sky for a moment, and then swam in the sea of flowers for a moment. Then, they turned around and flew back through the door. Lu Ping's expression didn't change in the slightest, as if he already knew that this would happen. Not long after the 12 half-foot-tall silver mountains returned to the Golden House, an even louder buzzing sound suddenly rang out from within the Golden House. The 12 core forging late-stage silver mountains that had come out to scout the way earlier were still the first to come out. However, this was only the beginning. Right after the 12 late blood condensation realm giant mountain peaks appeared, another 24 6th-level blood condensation realm giant mountain peaks. Their bodies were also slightly more injured than the previous 12 giant mountain peaks. Behind them were 36 5th-layer blood condensation realm cultivators and 48 4th-layer blood condensation realm cultivators. Their bodies had already shrunk to the size of 4 to 5 inches. After the 125th level blood condensation realm silver peaks appeared, they didn't scatter. Instead, they flew towards the endless sea of flowers. Instead, they lined up neatly in the sky, as if they were going to be inspected by a king. After the 126th level blood condensation realm silver peaks appeared, the deafening buzzing sound that came from the House of Gold suddenly disappeared. Only a crisp buzzing sound that sounded like the flapping of cicada wings could be heard coming from the golden door of the House of Gold. From the reflection of the Golden House, a huge queen bee with a slender waist, plump buttocks, and a foot long appeared in front of the phalanx formed by the 120 giant bees. After the queen bee appeared, the 120 giant bees lined up neatly and surrounded the queen bee. They slowly flew towards the sea of flowers, as if a king was patrolling his territory, or checking the quality of the amethyst honey that might be collected in the sea of flowers. Lu Ping had seen two extremely magnificent areas full of flowers. One was the secret ground sea of flowers in the seven-star sky, where he had obtained the purple crystal wasp, which was basically extinct in the cultivation world. The other was the land of 100 flowers in the fallen mystery land, where he had obtained the Flower King level 9 white jade lotus, which allowed the purple crystal wasp to grow at a critical moment. However, these two areas paled in comparison to the sea of flowers in front of him. Lu Ping stood on the spot, keeping the spatial passage of the House of Gold open. The purple crystal wasp was a colony that he had personally nurtured, so he naturally had a thorough understanding of their habits. He knew that when the purple crystal wasp was collecting ordinary honey, the queen bee would not come out of the hive. Only under extremely special circumstances would the queen bee come out to inspect the area of the sea of flowers and evaluate the quality of the nectar. He had only encountered this situation twice. The first time was in the land of 100 flowers in the fallen mystery land, and the second time was in the land of heritage in Junling that specialized in growing spiritual herbs. The ordinary spiritual herb gardens in Junling were naturally open to Lu Ping's purple crystal wasps. In Junling, Lu Ping's purple crystal wasps were the favorite of all the cultivators who sold spiritual herbs in Junling. This was because the harvesting of the purple crystal wasps was often very beneficial to the growth of spiritual herbs. Moreover, Lu Ping was very generous. Usually, after he released the purple crystal wasps in a cultivator's spiritual herb garden, he would return 1/3 of the harvest to the owner of the spiritual herb garden. Of course, the purple crystal royal jelly was out of the question. It was too rare. Even if Lu Ping harvested all the spiritual herb gardens in Junling, he might not be able to accumulate much purple crystal royal jelly. However, the purple crystal honey was different. Although the purple crystal royal jelly could not be mentioned in the same breath as the purple crystal royal jelly, for ordinary core forging cultivators, the purple crystal royal jelly was enough of a gift. More than a dozen core forging pill recipes passed down in Junling could not be refined due to the purple crystal royal jelly's requirements. Now that the purple crystal royal jelly was in hand, these pills were naturally not a problem. For the cultivators of Junling who had always been lacking pills, this undoubtedly broadened their cultivation channel. It should be known that in the North Sea, Countless cultivators from different sects were envious of the purple crystal wasps in Zhonling's hands. Unfortunately, the entire Zhonling guarded this swarm of purple crystal wasps very strictly. For a long time, the sects of the North Sea and most of the cultivators in Zhonling believed that this swarm of purple crystal wasps was actually cultivated by Fornax Laozu. You're tuning in to the Celestial War YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.